Xenon Academy's first years think today is just a normal class, until Professor JR rolls out a rare mana measuring device with a crystal orb and calmly says the whole point is to find out if a monster is hiding among them. Argon goes first. The orb lights up with quality 4 and quantity 17, already above last year's average. Then Furion steps up and hits quality 6 and quantity 20, making the entire room gasp. But the sleepy kid Damien suddenly wakes up, touches the orb, and shatters everyone's pride with quality 9 and a crazy quantity of 67. Now all eyes swing to Asta. He tries to stay low and quiet, but the system flashes 10, then spits out an error because the threshold is crossed. Asta forces a rerun and fakes a harmless 3 for quality and 15 for quantity. Well, there's a reason our MC is hiding his real power. Not long ago, Asta was a troubleshooter mage for House Declan, and during one mission he stole a tome. Assassins tracked him down, but he took them all out, leaving the last guy alive so he could torture him for information. Asta pins the hunter down with his magic and demands to know how to use the important tome, but the man reveals he has no idea. Asta starts to realize Declan himself might not know the tome's true worth, because if he did, he wouldn't have buried it in some rusty basement. Still, they chased him for it, even though Declan doesn't seem to know how to use it. The hunter suggests Asta hand over the tome so he can help him beg for mercy from the head of the house. Asta refuses and makes it clear he's going to end him. Suddenly, a portal opens behind him and a terrifying, overwhelming aura pours out. The aura belongs to a cool-looking man holding a cane. He is Farron Declan, the head of House Declan. Farron tells Asta he would like the tome back, and after that they can have a quick chat. Asta feels the crushing pressure of the power standing before him. He's been a troubleshooter for over 10 years, half of them under House Declan, yet this is the first time he's seeing the head in person. House Declan is the top magical family on the eastern continent, and rumors say its head is the strongest mage in its history. Asta can sense how dangerous Farron is, but he decides to play it cool. He asks if Farron is really interested in taking someone else's loot, calling it shameless. Farron laughs, but Asta is nervous because he knows what it means for the head himself to show up. He's forced to admit that Farron has the most overwhelming aura he has ever felt. Farron calmly says he could kill Asta and take the tome anytime, but he prefers to talk. He invites Asta to return to House Declan, promising to forget all his sins if he hands over the tome. He admits Asta has remarkable talent and doesn't want it wasted. He's impressed that Asta came from the gray zone yet mastered such effective techniques. Farron sweetens the offer, saying Asta could truly soar if House Declan supports him. After listing everything Asta could gain, he ends with the most important point, returning the tome. Asta suddenly agrees to the terms and Farron lets out a sigh of relief. But Asta adds that he has one condition. Then he demands the most ruthless thing possible. He tells Farron to hand over the seat of the house to him and he might consider returning the tome. To prove how ruthless he is, Asta kills the man he had been holding hostage. That pushes Farron's patience. He warns Asta that the path he has chosen may lead to his death. Asta knows Farron isn't wrong, but he still lunges forward, attacking just to measure the gap between their strength. Farron easily blocks Asta's blue attack with a red shield. Realizing Asta needs a lesson, Farron stands there cool and composed, aura flaring, then unleashes a powerful magic blast that sends Asta flying back. Asta nearly burns from the attack, barely escaping. It finally sinks in what kind of power the head of the house holds. He can't find a single opening, and the moment Farron sees him hesitate, he strikes again. Farron tells him there's no need to measure their strength, because he stands far above him. Asta soon faces a massive magical attack he can't evade. He gets smashed into the ground, but Farron clearly holds back and makes sure Asta knows it. He tells him he isn't here to kill him, he just wants to talk. Asta then asks what will happen if he finally agrees to return to House Declan. Farron replies that he wouldn't believe him anyway. Asta is glad Farron understands that, and since they are both clear, he prepares another magic attack. Asta declares he's done being a messenger and a dog for anyone. He pours everything into the spell, his body burning bright like lightning. He leaps at Farron and unleashes it, shouting that he refuses to crawl back into the kennel. Even Asta's strongest magic fails to break Farron's defense. And Farron finally decides to show him what real power looks like. Before Asta can react, a devastating blast hits him and his thoughts drift to his past. When he opens his eyes, Farron is standing over him looking down. Farron asks if he has finally seen true power. Asta admits Farron is strong, and since Farron wants to talk, he asks if he's ready to let him return as a troubleshooter. Farron replies that he wants him to be more than that. Apparently, he wants Asta to become the head of the Bongshin family. Asta is stunned by the offer. Since House Declan is powerful enough to challenge even for the throne, Asta quickly realizes they want him as head of the Bongshin family so he can swear fealty as one of their vassal houses. He finally understands Farron's real goal. He reaches into his storage space and pulls out the tome. Farron smiles at the sight and says he wants both Asta and the tome. He's pleased that Asta is finally making the right choice. But just as Farron moves to take it, Asta sets the tome on fire. Farron is left shocked and demands to know what he's doing. Asta calmly replies he never intended to give it to him. Farron assures him he's going to die a horrible death. Asta then reveals he didn't become a troubleshooter for money. He's furious because one of his teammates was devoured by Declan's young master using forbidden magic. After it happened, Declan covered everything up. Farron is clearly shocked and realizes Asta's actions are driven by revenge. Asta corrects him, saying he only wanted justice for his fallen comrades. He adds that his recent rampage was simply his version of retirement. Then Asta declares these are his last words. As soon as he finishes speaking, Farron sets him on fire, telling him to burn and regret his choices. But Asta screams through the flames that he has nothing to regret. He was ready to throw everything away if it meant never returning to House Declan. As the fire consumes him, he calls it freedom. And he swears that if he ever gets the chance to be reborn, he will take his revenge properly. Suddenly, something feels strange, as if time itself has stopped. Asta is confused, yet the tome remains active in his hands. Magic circles spread across his body. That is the last thing he sees before losing consciousness. When Asta opens his eyes, he finds himself in a filthy area, living as a beggar. He looks around, and it slowly sinks in that he has returned to the past. He's back to when he was just a child in the gray zone. Asta walks to a lake and studies his reflection, confirming it's really him, only younger. The fire mark on his chest is still there, even though he traveled back in time. He doesn't know how this happened, but he's certain the tome's magic is involved. He also realizes the tome must be incredibly important for the head of the house to personally chase him for it. Still, there's barely any information about it. He simply doesn't know. Since he has been given another chance, Asta believes it's time to finally succeed in what he once set out to do. He thinks about his mission, the same mission he once shared with his comrade. They once talked about why they were stuck in the lower class. His comrade said their lives would have been different if they were educated. They wouldn't have been slaves to rich pieces of trash exploiting them. Because of that, Asta planned to retire and build a library. He wants to create a place where anyone, regardless of money, status, or gender, can freely read books. In fact, he plans to go even further and build a tower. He doesn't really need it, he just wants to build it. And on the very first page, he plans to publish House Declan's secret technique, giving even the poorest people from the gray zones access to it. He can already imagine how dreadful that will be for them. The only problem left is how he's going to get the manual. He's enjoying his evil plan when a sudden kick slams into his cheek. He turns to see an angry guy demanding to know where he's been. The guy keeps kicking him, yelling that he was saving him a seat, but Asta never showed up. Asta struggles to remember the jerk who has turned him into a punching bag. He refuses to be treated like trash and grabs the guy's leg. He tells him he's been hit 7 times, and he plans to return it 70 times over. Asta throws a punch to the chest, but his young body is weak and he sprains his wrist. He's shocked by the pain, and while still dazed, he gets punched in the face again. The beating continues. Asta is nearly in tears from the kicks, but he spots an opening and shoves the guy into the lake. Before the guy can stand, Asta runs. The guy climbs out and shouts, asking why he's running. Asta replies he's not running, he's making a tactical retreat. He promises to remember his face and every hit he took, because as a veteran troubleshooter, quitting isn't in his vocabulary. He will get his revenge. He hides in an alley and stares at his swollen wrist, unable to believe how fragile his body is. It broke just from one punch. For now, he decides to put his dream aside and focus on training this weak, trashy body. Suddenly, a kid with a red eye appears and asks if he's hungry. Asta is caught off guard and asks if the boy knows him. The boy says he has no idea who he is. That makes sense since the kid looks like a noble. Asta assumes he must have fallen from grace during a power struggle. He labels the kid as a walking, pretty little bomb. The boy introduces himself as Damien. Asta is confused why this creepy kid keeps staring at him and talking, so he asks if he's mentally stable. Damien says he doesn't have a mom, and Asta replies he doesn't have a dad since they're apparently competing over who's the better orphan. Asta suggests they go their separate ways. He has no intention of getting involved with a ticking time bomb like Damien. Moments pass, but Damien doesn't move. Asta, already uneasy, asks if he's leaving or not. Shockingly, Damien says he's going with him. For a second, Asta considers smacking him, maybe that would knock some sense into him. Instead, he tells him to get lost. Damien then touches Asta's head, noticing the injury. He calmly says he can heal him. With a faint, eerie smile, he casts a glowing magic circle that releases gentle healing particles. At first, Asta thinks it's magic touch, but he quickly realizes he's wrong. What he's seeing isn't magic touch. It's the light of healing, the secret technique of House Blandor. And House Blandor fell because of House Declan. Asta can't believe he stumbled into something this dangerous. He starts wondering why a Blandor child is in the gray zone, because at this time the Blandor family should still be powerful. Lost in thought, he calls Damien's name. Damien responds excitedly, revealing his other eye bright green. He has 2 different eye colors. Seeing those eyes, Asta suddenly remembers something crucial. The odd-eyed child would one day grow up to become the monster of Blandor. The mad butcher who wouldn't die, no matter how many times you tried to kill him. After finishing the healing, Damien crouches down and starts counting ants like a normal kid, leaving Asta completely confused. Before the regression, when Asta was still a troubleshooter, he and his comrades were sent by House Declan to assist the Blandor family. There was reportedly a monster at their estate. They assumed it would be an ogre or something similar, but when they arrived, they found a massacre. It was Damien, tearing people apart effortlessly, casting healing magic without end, laughing as he fought like a lunatic. That was when he earned the name Monster of Blandor, the butcher who would not die. Asta forces himself to focus on the present. Why is a direct descendant, the sole heir of House Blandor, standing in front of him in the gray zone? Just then, Damien casually suggests something strange. He says they should eat. Damien says his mother told him he needs to eat to stay healthy, and he blames Asta's weakness on not eating properly. Asta has no choice but to admit the kid is right. He asks if Damien has any money. Damien says yes and pulls out a pouch filled with gold coins. Asta's face lights up instantly. He declares on the spot that they are now friends. Damien is shocked by the sudden friendship, but Asta smoothly plays along and tells him that friends usually share what they have. Damien falls for it and agrees. Asta suggests they get something to eat and Damien happily goes along. After they finish eating, they head to a shelter. Asta's stomach is full in a way it never has been before. Damien looks surprised that there's a house above the place where they ate. He says he's been sleeping outside and casually mentions he doesn't have a dad either. Asta corrects him, saying he does have a dad, but Damien refuses to accept that. Asta asks if he has a mom. Damien says no. To him, they don't exist if they're not by his side. Asta finally understands and tries to process it. He asks how long Damien has been alone. Damien replies that ever since he ran away from his family, he has slept 10 times. Asta wonders if he's being chased, assuming that means 10 days. Then Damien adds that he takes naps too, sometimes twice a day, but the total number of sleeps is 10. With that, Asta concludes he's been away from home for about 3 to 4 days. Damien acts like a normal child, and Asta realizes that even madmen were innocent once. Since Damien is alone, Asta decides to act as his guardian for now, and maybe use this chance to build a connection with the Blandor family. He knows that connection could help him when he eventually faces House Declan. Still, he hasn't forgotten the guy who hit him 57 times. Before lying down, Asta tells Damien not to disturb him because he has something to do. Damien immediately guesses that Asta wants to practice breathing. In his past life, Asta built his foundation on something basic. That's why he had to sneak into noble houses to steal spells. He nearly died several times, but he managed to obtain techniques like the hardened body spells used by knights. He collected many others, yet it was only when he was on the brink of death that he encountered true power. This time, he wants to be stronger from the start. The technique he plans to learn is House Declan's foundational art, the Heavenly Origin Technique. It's a foundation art that allows the body to accommodate all mana attributes. He memorized it once for research, and now he's grateful he can finally use it. It begins with a breathing method. The moment he activates it, a violent surge of power floods his body as if lava is burning through him. The pain is intense, but Asta refuses to stop. He sees impurities being burned out of his body. The technique, exclusive to high nobles, forces mana through the circuits to purge every impurity. Asta fully immerses himself in the process, and soon it feels as if he's submerged in a vast pool of mana. When he finally wakes from the agony, Damien is already asleep. Asta is shocked. There are no impurities left in his circuits. His mana is completely purified, even purer than in his previous life. Even so, he knows it's still not enough to defeat Declan, but his chances have increased. He reminds himself that he's a troubleshooter who never gives up. Later, Asta helps Damien change his hair color to brown and switches his clothes to hide his identity. To finish it off, he gives him a cap. Damien asks what their next move is. Asta replies that they're stepping out to cause some chaos. Soon enough, he finds the guy who hit him 57 times. The moment the guy sees him, he asks where he's been. Before he can say anything else, Asta punches him straight in the gut. The impact sends a wave of agony through his entire body and he collapses instantly. Asta feels satisfied. He landed it perfectly, but he's not finished. He still plans to hit him 123 times. The rest of the household hears the commotion and comes outside, only to realize their youngest is at the center of it. Deep down, Asta is already imagining all the things he wants to do. He unleashes his anger and starts beating them down. He pours mana into his fists, making every punch far more painful. Damien stands behind him, watching with clear enjoyment. Then Damien makes it worse. He starts healing them so they can endure more punishment. The first one he heals is the guy Asta has a grudge against. The poor fool thinks Damien is helping him until Asta grabs him again and reminds him of the number of hits he still owes. When Asta gets tired of using his fists, he switches to canes. He whips the main guy so hard that his backside radiates heat, yet Asta still isn't satisfied. He calls Damien to heal him again so he can repeat the process. To the victims, these aren't children anymore. They're devilish maniacs targeting their lives. After an entire day of this, Asta finally stops. To top it off, he thanks them for their cooperation. They served as perfect punching bags and he feels refreshed. Each of them received over 100 hits, adding up to more than 1,000 in total. He's proud of that. The leader of the group politely asks if they can leave. Asta says yes. The guy subtly reminds him that this is his house, implying Asta should be the one to leave. Asta catches the hint and stares at him with such a terrifying aura that the group retreats into a corner instead. Just then, Asta senses someone approaching. The presence feels skilled, like a troubleshooter. It hits him that the target might be Damien. He's surprised they tracked him down despite being careful. He realizes he's in a bad position, but he refuses to wait to be attacked. In his past life, he faced countless dangerous situations, and this is just another one. He gathers all the mana he can and compresses it repeatedly. He forms a mana bullet and aims it at the person charging toward them. But the man suddenly slides on one knee, dodging the shot, and shouts Damien's name while calling him master. He slides to Damien's side. It turns out Damien knows him. He's the family's butler, Alfredo. Alfredo grabs Damien tightly, but the boy tells him to let go. Alfredo refuses, saying he must return him to the family. Asta watches silently as the strange scene unfolds. He finally understands that Damien ran away from home. After introductions, Alfredo offers Asta the chance to come back to the estate with them, since Damien seems attached to him. Asta pauses to think. He knows the family is prestigious, but he can't fully grasp their intentions. Still, he had planned to build a connection anyway, and their territory lies on the way to the city. Zenon Academy is nearby as well, and since its library is top-notch, he plans to study there while preparing to build his own library one day. After considering everything, Asta accepts. Soon, they arrive at the estate. As he steps out of the carriage, he realizes this is his first official visit. It's already late, so Alfredo suggests they rest. He instructs the maid, Lankency, to take care of the children. Lankency stares at Damien with cold eyes, and Damien instantly senses trouble. Later that night, Alfredo heads to the chambers of the matron Gamo. He informs her that Damien was in the gray zone and that he has brought him back safely. Gamo, an impulsive woman, immediately unleashes an attack spell in rage before learning her son is unharmed. She exhales in relief, and Alfredo does the same. Everyone knows it would have been a death sentence if anything had happened to Damien. Gamo was once known as the Blood Witch, and her fury is unstoppable. She commends Alfredo for his effort. Before leaving, Alfredo mentions one more thing. He tells Gamo that Damien's new friend, Asta, sensed his presence before he revealed himself, and in response, Asta had already prepared a counterattack. Alfredo reveals that when they faced off, Asta was wielding a mana bullet. Gamo is impressed to hear that, admitting it's an incredible talent for someone from the gray zone. Because of this, Alfredo tells the matron he has a favor to ask. The next day, Asta wakes up to a request from Alfredo asking him to become his successor. Asta is stunned. Alfredo feels relieved seeing that surprise, confident Asta will jump at such a rare opportunity, but Alfredo is left speechless when Asta suddenly refuses. For a moment, he thinks he misheard. Even Damien looks shocked that Asta rejected the offer. Asta admits it's a big proposal, but calmly says he prefers things the way they are. Alfredo quickly concludes that Asta, born in the gray zone and self-taught through raw talent, must be overly confident. He tries to crush that confidence, explaining that the world is vast and filled with dangers Asta knows nothing about. He compares Asta to a goblin in a massive canyon. Asta corrects him, saying he feels more like a wyvern. Alfredo is taken aback and decides to show him exactly what he means. He brings Asta to the butler training hall, where the trainees are in session. Alfredo proudly presents the scene, explaining that the kids are all Asta's age and recognized as the talents of House Blandor. Asta observes them closely and admits their training is precise enough to strip away any childishness. Still, he isn't impressed. He tells Alfredo he can feel their aura. Alfredo is pleased and asks again if he's ready to accept the proposal, promising he could shine just like them. Asta refuses once more, saying he hates the light. At that moment, one of the trainees, Winster, raises his hand. He suggests that Asta must be talentless, which is why he rejected the offer. He claims Asta simply can't grasp how great they are and wants to show him. In short, he challenges Asta to a duel. Alfredo senses the arrogance in Winster but allows it. He asks Asta if he's willing. Asta understands the situation. The trainees already see him as a rival, probably thinking he's some lucky nobody who appeared out of nowhere and received an offer to become the chief butler's successor. Asta accepts the duel but asks if he can choose his opponent. Alfredo agrees. Asta points at Winster, then he points at 4 more trainees. The room goes silent when he declares he wants a 5 versus 1. Winster can't believe it. Asta tells him he's free to back out if he's scared, Alfredo laughs, seeing in Asta the boldness he expects from a successor. He asks Asta if he's ready to take responsibility for his words. Asta says yes. Alfredo offers a condition. If Asta lasts 1 minute, he'll give him a gift. If he fails, he must accept becoming his successor. Asta can hear the desperation in Alfredo's voice, but he isn't intimidated. With the terms set, Alfredo tells them to enter the ring. The training instructor hesitates and asks if this isn't dangerous. Alfredo admits it is, but insists Asta needs to learn humility. The instructor worries about harming Damien's guest. He approaches Damien and says his friend is in danger, hoping he'll stop the match. Instead, Damien looks excited. He even wants to join in, but Lankency warns him that Gamo will scold him if he interferes. Alfredo orders the instructor to start the match and stop wasting time. Realizing he can't stop it, the instructor steps forward. Lankency notices his unease and leaves the room, reminding Damien not to get involved. Damien smiles and promises he won't. The instructor explains the rules. It's a free-for-all. The duel ends only when one side surrenders, though he can intervene at any time. Winster glares at Asta, determined to crush him and expose him as a fraud. The match begins. Asta moves instantly, driving a mana-infused punch into Winster's gut. Winster staggers back, coughing up liquid. Before he can recover, Asta has already taken down the other 4 trainees. They writhe on the ground in pain. Only Winster remains standing. Asta stares at him coldly and says he's about to give him a valuable experience. Mana bullets roll casually in his hands. He announces the first lesson: never underestimate the little guy. Winster feels his stomach drop as he realizes Asta is casually wielding mana bullets, something that requires serious mastery. Asta continues. The second lesson: stop judging people so easily. He fires multiple compressed mana bullets, striking Winster and the others. They scream as the impact sends waves of agony through them. Then comes the third lesson. The world is vast and bitter. Asta steps forward and finishes Winster with a final punch. He smiles at the fallen trainees and tells them he'll personally ensure they understand those lessons. Winster screams, calling Asta a lunatic. He shouts that Asta isn't even using magic. Asta calmly replies that it is magic. He kicks Winster in the head and explains he's using physical magic. The entire room watches in stunned silence as Asta dominates the trainees effortlessly, dragging them around like puppets. Alfredo is speechless. He replays the mana bullet in his mind, wondering how many times it was compressed. Given its power, it had to be at least 4 or 5 compressions. He realizes that if he had taken that hit earlier, it could have seriously injured him. Asta has complete control over his innate mana, and he's extremely good at beating people up. Behind them, Damien continues healing the trainees so Asta can keep going. Suddenly, Lankency returns with Gamo. She immediately calls for Alfredo. The instructor sees the matron and sighs in relief. Gamo asks Alfredo what this is. He admits he was conducting a test. Gamo stares at the chaos and questions how he can call this a test. Asta is dismantling 5 trainees while Damien supports him from behind. She orders Alfredo to gather the trainees and end the duel. She tells Damien and Asta to return to their rooms. Then she walks to the instructor and informs him he's fired, leaving him stunned. Later that night, Gamo tells Alfredo he went too far, even if his intentions were pure. Alfredo accepts his mistake and says he's ready for punishment. Gamo asks if Damien assisted Asta during the duel. Alfredo says no. Asta is simply that skilled at hitting people. He adds that Asta used mana bullets again, compressing them multiple times to amplify their power. Gamo understands immediately. That level of control over mana is rare. She may not have seen the beginning, but she witnessed Asta overwhelming 5 trainees effortlessly. Even high-level mages struggle with handling mana bullets. She asks about the successor proposal. Alfredo admits Asta rejected it without hesitation. Gamo decides she needs to reassess the boy. She tells Alfredo to bring Asta to her. Soon after, Asta stands before Gamo. Damien is in the room too, casually munching on cookies. Before speaking, Gamo places a box on the table. Asta looks at it confused. She reminds him that Alfredo promised him a gift. He's even more surprised to learn it's from her. She tells him to open it. Inside is a high-grade item. Asta is stunned. Even within the Blandor family, only recruits to the top 5 mage divisions receive something like this. He immediately suspects there's more attached to it. As if reading his thoughts, Gamo tells him he may accept the gift freely. She explains that he helped her son in the gray zone, and this also serves as an apology for what happened earlier that day. Asta refuses to fall into any trap, so he asks Gamo if consuming the item would force him to join Blandor. She says no. He then asks if the item contains poison, and again her answer is no. Asta is genuinely shocked. There are no conditions attached at all. He thanks her for the gift, then Gamo mentions she has a proposal. The moment Asta hears that, he knows he was right to be cautious. She reveals her plan to arrange Asta's admission into the academy so he can attend alongside Damien. Asta is confused. Gamo explains that Damien was supposed to enroll the previous year, but he refused, so it was postponed to this year. What she didn't expect was her son running away the way he did. She can already see that Damien likes Asta, which is why she is asking him. Asta understands immediately. Gamo is trying to ensure Damien stays at the academy because if she forces him, he will just run away again. At the same time, Asta sees it as a rare opportunity. The academy would give him connections, exposure, and access to resources. It is not a bad idea. He knows it is a smart move, yet it also feels like placing a leash around his own neck. After thinking for a moment, he tells her he will consider it. Gamo accepts his answer and says she will wait for his reply. Then she asks why he rejected Alfredo's offer to become his successor. Asta senses that Alfredo is eavesdropping nearby, so he decides to bruise the man's pride a little. He calmly says his knees are precious to him. In other words, he does not like bowing to anyone. The words hit Alfredo directly as he listens from behind the door. Later, back in his room, Asta consumes the item. He immediately feels the changes in his body and is impressed. Even at just 10% absorption, his mana increases drastically. His physique begins shifting toward that of a flameborn. What impresses him most is that absorbing the item leaves no impurities in his body. As for the academy, he has already made up his mind. He knows enrolling will give him the chance to meet a sponsor quickly. There are many advantages. Still, the feeling of walking into a trap lingers in the back of his mind. To clear his thoughts, Asta decides to go for a run. He steps out of his room and hears someone ask, "Are you Asta?" He turns to see a young man with platinum blonde hair. Since Damien is the direct descendant, Asta assumes this guy is a relative. He chooses to lie. He says he is not the Asta the man is looking for. The stranger is shocked because the appearance matches exactly what he was told. Asta doubles down, claiming that hair can look different depending on the light, so many things could appear different. The man hesitates, then assumes he made a mistake. He apologizes and turns to leave. Right at that moment, Alfredo rushes over and calls out Asta's name. He wanted to discuss the successor matter again, but by saying Asta's name at the worst possible time, he exposes him. The stranger immediately turns back, saying he knew it because Asta has an unpleasant face. With no way to maintain the lie, Asta admits the truth. The man is irritated, but when he notices Alfredo standing there, he backs off. Still, he tells Asta to come to the Mage Hall later so he can beat him up and teach him manners. After he leaves, Alfredo asks if something is wrong. Asta says no, but deep down he has already decided. He was looking for someone to vent his frustration on, and this guy is perfect. He plans to visit the Mage Hall later and return the favor. Then Asta asks if he can see Gamo immediately. He is taken to her office. Gamo is surprised he requested a meeting so early in the morning. She asks if he has made a decision. He says yes. To her surprise, he agrees to enroll in the academy. Gamo is relieved. She tells him preparations will begin right away. After Asta leaves, Alfredo enters the room. He asks about the outcome and Gamo informs him that Asta accepted. Alfredo celebrates quietly. They will cover Asta's first semester fees. But from the second semester onward, he will struggle to pay tuition. Alfredo believes that once Asta grows anxious about continuing his studies, he will step in and offer help. Gamo quickly tells him to lower his voice. Alfredo apologizes and heads to the kitchen since breakfast is near. After he leaves, Gamo understands his excitement. He believes he has found a path to make Asta his successor. Still, she considers the plan sloppy. Alfredo, however, seems confident because the former head butler used the same tactic on him. Later, Asta heads to the Mage Hall as instructed. He opens the door and sees a hooded mage asking why he has come. Since he does not know the brat's name, Asta stutters slightly. Suddenly, the mage brightens up, saying he has been waiting for him. He tells Asta to follow him and leads him to another room. He urges him to enter but to mind his head. Asta steps inside and is immediately struck by papers flying through the air. Now he understands the warning. Soon, he encounters a man who introduces himself as Wenji von Blondor. He asks if Asta came to see his little brother. Asta is confused, so the brat from earlier is his brother. From his past life, Asta knows one common trait about mages. They often start losing their hair. He has categorized it into stages. First, they deny it and hide under robes. Second, they give up and reveal the bald spot. Third, they accept reality and shave it completely. Then comes the fourth stage where they desperately research spells to regrow hair. No one has ever succeeded. Yet none of these signs appear on Wenji, who stands comfortably before him. Before anything else, Wenji apologizes for his younger brother's behavior. Asta asks if he works at an academy. Wenji reveals he is currently serving as vice dean. He pours Asta a drink. Asta is impressed. A position like vice dean cannot be earned through family name alone. Wenji must be skilled. Wenji teases him, saying he is quite different from what he expected. Then he reveals he knows Asta has been encouraged to enroll in Zenian Academy, which is a major opportunity. He congratulates him and says it is a good place to grow. He adds that he graduated from the academy himself from the 145th class. Asta remains unimpressed. He never asked for that information. Wenji notices and quickly apologizes, saying he got carried away. He suggests they move to the main matter, but first he wants to confirm something. He asks Asta if he would be willing to risk his life for a friend. Asta is confused. Wenji explains that this concerns the reputation of the Blondor family. He reaches into his storage space and pulls out a book. Asta's eyes widen the moment he sees it. Wenji says he will give him the tome if he is willing to risk his life. It is the Blondor family's secret technique, the healing light. Meanwhile, Gamo tends to her garden, thinking about Damien's upcoming enrollment. She is relieved everything was handled smoothly. She considers Asta a good friend to her son. Even if Alfredo calls him a bit of a jerk sometimes, she knows his nature is good. Every child has a shameless side. She is glad that even after learning Damien's true background, Asta did not treat him differently. People like Asta are rare. That is why she wants him by Damien's side. Still, she knows one bitter truth. Asta is like a free bird, he will never allow himself to be caged. Even so, for the sake of her son, she begins thinking of ways to keep him close. Back in the Mage Hall, Asta stares at the book, wondering why Wenji is offering him the family's secret technique. Asta studies the situation carefully, trying to see if this is a trap. Across from him, Wenji studies him just as closely, attempting to read his emotions, but Asta gives nothing away. To Wenji, it feels like staring at someone behind a mask, impossible to see the real face underneath. Wenji tells him to think carefully before answering, not to be blinded by the reward placed in front of him. Asta calmly says he will give his answer. He explains that if the request is something he can do, he will do it. If not, then he will not. Wenji warns him that simply hearing the proposal might already put his life at risk. And if he hears it and refuses, Wenji may have to kill him. Without fear in his voice or expression, Asta replies that Wenji is free to kill him. After all, they are destined to live only once. Though for Asta, this is already his second life. Wenji releases a terrifying aura to intimidate him. Asta remains unmoved. Seeing that he does not scare easily, Wenji smiles and says he passed the test. He explains that he needs someone he can trust, but that person cannot be from within his own family. After circling around with vague words, Wenji finally reveals his true intention. It is not a power struggle within the Blondor family. The family itself is united. The real issue is that he seems to be under close surveillance by the Declan family. Asta is surprised. He asks why Declan would monitor him, especially when he has already made it clear he does not fear death. Wenji reveals the truth. He has been researching the Declan family's origins magic, and he may have achieved a breakthrough. Somehow he managed to obtain their heavenly origins magic, a technique exclusive to Declan. The moment Asta hears this, his expression tightens. He realizes he is sitting in front of a man who is practically dead already. He asks if Wenji is trying to destroy the technique. Wenji shakes his head. He says he found a way to improve the Declan family's secret art and push it toward perfection. Asta immediately concludes he is dealing with a madman who values research over his own life. Wenji admits he simply could not resist pursuing the discovery. To Asta, he looks like a complete lunatic, yet the timing makes perfect sense. In his past life, when Declan wiped out the Blondor family, Wenji had been researching the new 10,000 circle. Declan likely saw its potential and chose to eliminate Blondor without hesitation. It starts to click. Declan may have adopted that power, which explains why they became insanely strong. Wenji then asks if Asta is willing to help him push the research further. Asta asks why he chose him. Wenji explains that he could not report the research to his own family because he suspects a mole, though he cannot identify who it is. Asta suggests it might be a secretary. Wenji disagrees, saying the issue is likely tied to the acquisition route. He adds that the moment he realized he had been exposed, he took precautions. Asta then asks why he does not simply side with Declan, since they would surely welcome him. Wenji replies that he has personal reasons for refusing them. Because Asta is not tied to the Blondor family, Wenji sees him as the perfect intermediary. He clarifies that this is a joint research project, but he cannot currently move forward alone. He promises proper compensation. What he wants is simple. He wants Asta to deliver his thesis to Professor Perun of Xenon Academy. In return, he will give him the healing light spell. Asta senses an opportunity. He says he has a better deal. He wants the healing light as compensation and the 1,000 circle once Wenji completes it. It is a double-or-nothing gamble. Wenji calls him a shameless jerk. But since the mission is critical, he agrees. He promises to hand over the spell once it is complete. However, he has one condition as well. He wants Asta to assist him before the research is fully finished. Asta agrees without hesitation. As he collects the thesis, Asta jokes that he does not know how to read, then quickly admits he is only teasing. He asks if Professor Perun is trustworthy. Wenji explains that they were academy classmates and longtime rivals, constantly competing to outdo each other. The rivalry only ended when Wenji returned to his family. Asta cannot believe he is about to meet another lunatic like Wenji at the academy. Back in his room, a stack of books from Wenji arrives along with a letter. In it, Wenji outlines the order Asta should study the books to build his foundation properly. Without delay, Asta organizes them. He admits Wenji is a genius. He begins drafting a list of book sponsors, placing Wenji's name at the very top. When he eventually builds his tower, he plans to place the Healing Light book inside so others can read it. Still, he knows he must discuss that with Damien later. He intends to use a little friend privilege to convince him. Asta feels proud of the vision he is building, a place where people can truly learn magic. He considers his meeting with Wenji a turning point. Meanwhile, Wenji is also pleased. Asta seems useful, someone who caught his interest. He is especially impressed that Asta did not flinch at the mention of death. It may have been a threat, but the absence of fear was real. Wenji saw it clearly in his eyes, the gaze of someone who does not fear dying. At last, he believes he has found someone worthwhile, not another useless pig. He can also tell Asta hides many secrets. To him, that is a good sign. In a way, he feels Asta shares the same dream. Soon after, Asta prepares for the academy. He packs his belongings and puts on the academy uniform. Lance arrives to escort him. She explains that upon arrival, he will only need to complete simple document registration. She also reveals that he and Damien are exempt from the entrance examination. She compliments how the uniform suits him. Asta responds like a gentleman, thanking her politely. He reflects on the exemption. It is reserved for prestigious families under special admission. He is glad to benefit from it as well. When he reaches the carriage, Damien and his mother are already waiting. Gamo tells them to stay safe at the academy. Asta acknowledges her words. She also says she is praying for him to achieve the results he desires. Asta smiles and thanks her sincerely. Inside, he is determined to achieve exactly that. The academy is filled with opportunities and he intends to seize them all. He even looks forward to meeting his future classmates. During the journey, he studies the light spell book Wenji gave him. He is impressed by the clarity of the interpretation. Each noble family has its own method of explaining techniques, but compared to others, Wenji's version aligns smoothly with Declan's celestial principle. Soon, they arrive at Xenon Academy. Asta remains by the window, observing the renowned institution. Lance announces that the carriage service ends here. According to the founding principal's rule, during admission, all students must proceed on foot, regardless of status. She tells them this is where they part ways and wishes them a good time at the academy. After stepping down, Damien grabs Asta and urges him to hurry to the ceremony hall. Lance told him that if they arrive late, there might not be any seats left. Asta is stunned. An entrance ceremony is not some village theater with first-come, first-served seating. Then he remembers, it was Lance who said it. He quickly realizes she used it as bait to keep Damien from dragging his feet. For once, Asta decides to play along. They reach the hall and Damien is overwhelmed by the crowd. Even though half the hall remains empty, he still believes they would have lost their seats if they were late. Asta cannot believe Damien still has not realized he was tricked. He takes out their seat reservations to check their assigned places. Damien points toward a section and suggests they sit there, leaving Asta puzzled. He cannot understand how Damien is so excited about the academy when he was running away from it not long ago. Suddenly, Damien collides with another student, a tall, giant-like boy named Exter. Exter looks down at him as if he were an insect. Asta steps forward, helping his friend up and asking if he is all right. Damien assures Asta that he is fine and blames the whole thing on not watching where he was going. They are about to leave when Exter stops them. Apparently, Damien smeared saliva on Exter's clothes. Asta is still trying to process what happened when Damien rushes over to help clean it, only to make it worse by adding even more saliva. Exter's face twists in anger, and he throws a punch straight at Damien. Asta steps in instantly and blocks the punch before it lands. He tells Exter to stop throwing a tantrum before he makes a mistake. Exter angrily demands to know who Asta is, and Damien replies that Asta is his friend. Asta confirms it calmly, and it finally clicks for Exter why he stepped in. Still, Exter warns him that he will regret it. Asta already knows where this is going, and he does not mind. It is clear Exter wants to settle this with fists, not words. The tension draws the attention of the students in the hall. Someone whispers that Exter is the direct descendant of the Dalumpi family. Bets start flying around. Most believe Exter will win. One student suggests they stop the fight before things escalate, arguing that they cannot fight properly in a crowded hall. Another student immediately casts a barrier around the trio so they can fight freely. Cheers erupt, mostly for Exter. In the distance, a creepy-looking student watches with a quiet smile, as if he already knows how this will end. Inside the barrier, Exter introduces himself and demands Asta do the same. Asta casually replies that he was not born into nobility like Exter. He tells him to think of him as just a random guy passing through. Exter says he will allow Asta the first strike since he is a mage. Asta laughs and teases him. That is enough. Exter charges forward like a raging bull. Asta reminds him that he is fighting two people. He sidesteps the punch and counters with a clean strike to Exter's face, sending him backward. Exter is stunned by the weight behind the punch. He begins to question whether Asta is really just a magician. Then he realizes Damien has cast a healing spell on him. He does not understand why, unaware that it is about to make things much worse. While he is distracted, Astat closes the distance and drives another punch into his gut. Blow after blow lands. Exter finally understands. One beats him, the other heals him. He has picked a fight with lunatics. For the first time, fear creeps in. The crowd starts shouting encouragement, telling him not to hold back, calling him the hope of warriors. Fueled by their cheers, Exter regains his composure. He roars, calling Astat a mere magician, and swings again. Astat dodges the first strike and even praises the effort. Exter yells at him not to underestimate him. This time he swings with full force and catches Astat clean. Astat is thrown backward. The crowd explodes in cheers, thinking Exter has turned the tide, but Exter does not celebrate. The impact felt strangely light. Astat twists midair and lands smoothly on his feet. Exter freezes for a second, then rushes in again. Astat glances back and sees Damien still healing Exter. If this continues, he will not go down. He has to end it in one hit. Astat taps into a technique he developed with his comrades in his past life. By colliding magical particles, he extracts raw energy. It uses magic, but it is not exactly magic. It is not martial arts either. It is pure technical application. Once the energy is ready, Astat lets Exter get close. Then he strikes. A massive shockwave erupts, blinding the spectators and shattering the barrier. Silence falls. Exter crashes to the ground and loses consciousness. The mighty descendant falls from a single punch. Astat raises his hand like a warrior claiming victory, and the crowd shifts, now cheering for him instead. They begin to question if he is truly just a magician. Damien beams with excitement, and Astat pats him on the head. The creepy student in the distance continues smiling at Astat. Just then, a teacher rushes in to calm the chaos. He cannot believe students are fighting on the very first day. He demands to know who started it, but no one is willing to snitch. Astat quietly plans their escape, then Damien ruins everything. He shouts to get the teacher's attention and proudly confesses that he and Astat were responsible. Astat closes his eyes in pure frustration as the teacher approaches. Exter still lies unconscious on the floor. The two are taken to the teacher's office and scolded. However, since Damien confessed immediately and Exter did not suffer serious injuries, the teacher lets it slide. Afterward, they return to the hall, lucky that the ceremony has not started yet. As they walk in, everyone stares at them. Word has already spread. They cannot believe that someone who looks as frail as Astat defeated a martial artist. While Astat maintains a composed aura, Damien waves at the crowd like a celebrity. Astat cannot believe he has drawn this much attention and silently wishes Damien would stop waving like an idiot. After searching, they finally find their seats. Soon after, the headmaster, a short, white-haired old man, steps onto the stage. He begins addressing the students. Minutes pass and his voice remains strong without the slightest hint of weakness. Astat is impressed. Damien, meanwhile, falls asleep and starts drooling. Astat quickly pulls him upright before he floods everything with saliva. Just as the headmaster gains momentum in his speech, someone approaches him with urgent news. He tries to ignore it, but once he hears the details, he has no choice. He ends his speech early and hands the podium over. A bright-haired woman steps up, and her sharp voice slices through the hall like thunder. Even Damien jolts awake. She introduces herself as Jara and announces she will continue from where the headmaster left off. She calls for the freshman oath. The first name she announces is the Magic Division representative, Dahlia Denai. Whispers ripple through the hall. Some are shocked that someone from the Denai family took the entrance exam. Some claim her skills must be lacking. Others defend her, saying her family would never allow that if she were incompetent. Astat knows exactly who she is. The Denai family stands just below Declan in reputation. Dahlia will become their future representative mage. She is capable. He knows that firsthand. They helped each other once, though they never truly got along. People often call them bad friends. Astat smiles slightly, pleased that she joined this year. After Dahlia takes the stage, Jara calls the Martial Arts Division representative Paul. Since no noble house name follows, Astat assumes he is not from a prestigious family. Once both representatives finish their oath, they return to their seats. Jara then begins introducing the professors who will teach the class. As Dahlia walks down the stairs, she looks directly toward Astat's seat. For a second, it feels like eye contact. Then she missteps and stumbles down the stairs, embarrassing herself. Soon after, Professor Perun of Basic Principles of Meology steps onto the stage. Astat notes he feels different from Wenji, but he decides to hold his judgment for now. When the ceremony ends, Jara instructs the students to follow attendants to their assigned dormitories. Damien finally wakes up, and Astat decides to prank him, telling him he has been expelled after they caught him sleeping. Damien hears this and screams at the top of his lungs without a single care. Astat almost regrets the prank as he heads to his dorm, not expecting Damien to scream like that. Astat finally reaches his dorm room and is impressed by how good-looking it is. In the corner are living supplies arranged to make things easier for the students. Just as he starts putting his things in order, his roommate Paul walks in. Astat is surprised by how cold Paul looks, as if he does not care about anything. Paul speaks bluntly, saying it would be best if they lived quietly because he is not in the business of making friends. He assures Asta he does not care what he does, as long as it does not affect him. In fact, he would prefer if they stopped talking after introductions. Asta, never one to back down, locks eyes with him and says nothing. The silence triggers Paul, who demands to know why Asta is not answering. Deep down, Asta is thinking about how skilled Paul might be since it is said he entered as the top student. To test him, Asta suddenly makes a fake charge toward him to see his reaction. Paul immediately reaches for his sword. Asta notices his stance is solid, and the sword placement shows he knows exactly what he is doing. Just then, Asta hears Damien calling him from outside. He smiles as if nothing happened and tells Paul he is free to do whatever he wants. Since they are both minding their own business, Asta casually teases him, saying he might start singing past midnight. After winding Paul up and leaving him confused, Asta steps out of the room. He meets Damien, who excitedly asks who his roommate is. Asta replies that he does not know, which shocks Damien. Damien decides not to push further and suggests they tour the academy since there is a lot to see. He wants to check out everything on the very first day. Apparently, the academy is vast, and students are advised to learn the layout so they do not get lost during their stay. Even though it sounds exhausting, Asta is up for it because he has something on his mind too. He wants to know how many troubleshooters are inside the academy. With that, the two begin exploring. They soon arrive at a lake, and Damien expresses his disbelief as usual. Asta figures Lance was stuck with Damien because he acts like a complete baby. Tired of the noise, Asta tells him to ask his family to build him a lake since their estate lacks one. All it takes, he says, is digging the ground and pouring in water. Damien is instantly intrigued and excitedly declares he will tell his family to make it even bigger than this one. Thinking about a name, he proudly comes up with blood, sweat, and tears. They move on and find a cool-looking statue. Asta tells Damien to inform his family to build one for him too. He keeps filling his head with ideas, even suggesting they shape it like a dragon because the scales would look gorgeous. Back home, Lance suddenly feels a strange, uneasy vibe and wonders what might be wrong. After walking for quite some time, Asta suggests they head back to the dorms and Damien agrees. During their sightseeing, Asta counted 7 troubleshooters. He factors in the ones he has not identified and rounds the number up to 10. With that calculation, he concludes that Perun's laboratory is in the second magic hall. He quickly connects the dots and realizes the troubleshooters are after Perun. Since Declan already suspected that once she had allies they would start targeting Perun in this area, everything makes sense. Asta had wondered why they were not following Perun earlier, but now he realizes they were simply waiting for the right time. Asta decides to find out how much they know. He positions himself perfectly to overhear 2 troubleshooters talking. The first says headquarters has issued an emergency directive and they are to gather at the target's nest. The second asks whether the target is the main or the sub. The first replies they are going after the sub and plan to deliver their objective to the sub-target by midnight. The second concludes that since WJI has made his move, Perun must be the target. Still, he worries about the school professors, saying they are no match. The first explains that Declan himself will not be coming, but before he begins, he reveals that the fire demon Callahan will be joining them. The second is shocked because Callahan is the vice leader of Declan's Mage Corps, the Red Jewel. This means their operation is fully backed, and it shows Declan is ready to do anything for the mission. At the same time, it means the troubleshooters themselves are expendable. Despite their fear, they have no choice but to carry out the job. They leave to regroup with the others to secure their numbers. Unknown to them, Asta heard everything. He is surprised that Callahan of all people is involved. He remembers that Callahan is no small threat. Back when Asta was still a troubleshooter, Callahan was already in his prime. When the Declan family staked their survival on war against the Blandor family, Callahan remained loyal to the collapsing house, proving his devotion. Though he is dangerous now, he truly entered his prime after the war, carving his name into history as a war mage with deadly, unstoppable fire. Since Callahan will be coming, Asta decides it is important to capture him. He recalls that Callahan uses one of Declan's flame arts. The risks are high, but Asta believes the reward outweighs them. Still, one thing bothers him. The thesis everyone is searching for is with him, not Perun. If the troubleshooters are targeting Perun, then the thesis he has might be fake. That would also mean the thesis being delivered today is fake as well. Later that night in the dorm, Paul gets dressed, revealing he is one of the troubleshooters. He thinks Asta is asleep, unaware that the Asta in the bed is nothing more than a dummy. Perun is in his study when he senses the troubleshooters entering his territory. He wonders why they are bold enough to invade the academy. Then it hits him the one approaching is a mercenary. Surprisingly, it is Paul. Perun easily recognizes him by his aura and calmly advises him to refine his ether traits next time, that is, if there will be a next time. Paul hands him an envelope and Perun finally realizes it was WG. He wonders what kind of trick Wee is playing and what schemes are unfolding. Suddenly, the door explodes. Callahan strolls into the office, fear flashing across Paul's face while Perun remains calm. Callahan notices Paul's fear and takes it as proof that he understands what he is capable of. He then turns to Perun and asks if he has heard of him. Perun coldly replies no. Perun rises from his chair and tells Callahan to get to the point. That irritates Callahan, but before losing his temper, he admits it is the first time he has been treated so poorly. He lays out his terms. First, he wants Paul dead. Then he turns to Perun and says he will leave him with one arm and one eye. Callahan fires a blazing fireball, but Perun blocks it with a countering ice spell. A violent explosion rocks the building. Perun then tells Paul he is responsible for his own life because right now he is a mercenary, not a student. Paul has no issue with that and draws his sword. Perun realizes the Declan troubleshooters must have cast a blackout spell, which is why no alarms are going off. That means he is on his own with Paul. Callahan spots the envelope on the table and declares it is exactly what he came for, since it was sent to Perun by the Trash Blandor family. Since Perun refuses to hand it over, Callahan unleashes a powerful flame spell that shakes the ground. Perun remains calm, activating his ice to counter whatever comes his way. Just then, the other troubleshooters begin moving in, and Perun finally gets serious, unleashing a devastating strike that nearly brings the building down. Meanwhile, Asta watches from afar and realizes things are escalating fast. Excited to see real action again, he puts on his mask and says he is not Asta right now but Troubleshooter 1. He clenches his fist, prays to the moon, and asks for the strength to be a good troubleshooter today, even if he has not always been righteous. After the brief prayer, he leaps toward the battlefield as the damaged building begins to cave in. Inside, Callahan is having the time of his life. He is surprised that after everything he has done, Paul is still alive, and he commends him for it. Deep down, Paul knows he would have been dead if he were not wearing the protective talisman WJI gave him. He did not even realize it was a protective talisman, and now he considers himself lucky for having it on. Perun speaks coldly to Paul, telling him to get out of the way as he unleashes a powerful ice blast to rival Callahan's flames. He then pats Paul on the shoulder, saying he has done well so far, which means he can trust him. Perun displays one of his traits by infusing Paul's sword with ether, shocking him. He asks if Paul can keep blocking incoming attacks. Paul answers yes as long as he is needed. He understands they are past the point of retreat, and if he fails, he is dead. Callahan is impressed by their sudden teamwork. A mage and a guard, exactly what he wanted to fight. He unleashes another fireball, and this time Paul's sword fails him. He is smashed into the wall, and with Paul out of the picture, Perun realizes he has no choice but to get serious. Apparently, when the mana in nature is limited and two authoritative beings issue commands at the same time, a struggle for control begins between them. Perun wants to see how much damage Callahan can withstand. Since Perun requests a duel, Callahan happily accepts. They unleash their power at each other, and the building suffers the most. It begins to crumble, and Paul loses his balance and falls. As he drops, all he sees are two monsters clashing without restraint. He crashes to the floor, questioning why he joined a fight so far beyond his level. From afar, the troubleshooters are stunned by the destruction. They quickly realize that if they interfere, they will be crushed. Just when they think they are safe, Asta appears behind them and takes them out, sending panic through the group. After clearing out anyone in his way, Asta heads toward the battlefield. His arrival catches the attention of both fighters, leaving them wondering which side he is on. With blinding speed, Asta reaches Callahan and grabs him by the neck, telling him he has arrived at the place where he will die. Panicked, Callahan unleashes a fire blast, but it causes a mana backlash. He coughs up blood, shocked to see Asta unharmed and already dashing toward him again. At the same time, the troubleshooters rush in. Callahan realizes he must suppress the backlash if he wants a chance. He quickly drinks a potion, wondering where someone as strong as Asta came from. The troubleshooters attempt to take Asta down, but he blocks effortlessly and counters, sending them flying. Callahan watches in disbelief. Before he knows it, he feels something unexpected: admiration. Asta moves with precision and ruthless efficiency. Still furious, Callahan declares he will kill him. He creates multiple magic circles, preparing an even greater fire blast. The firepower is overwhelming, so intense that it burns his own men. Asta is momentarily stunned by the sheer scale. As thick smoke fills the air, Callahan wonders if he managed to catch Asta. He knows some allies were hit, but he does not care. Completing the mission matters more than lives. After waiting a few seconds and seeing nothing, he assumes Asta is dead. He smiles, thinking he overreacted. If he joins the remaining troubleshooters, he can gain the upper hand against Perun. Suddenly, his blood runs cold when he hears Asta's voice asking if that was his best. Asta says he knows what kind of man Callahan is, which is why he predicted he would sacrifice his own people to eliminate him. Standing above, Asta forms a magic circle and tells Callahan he is about to die because of his choices. He fires his mana bullet. With no way to dodge, Callahan watches it fly straight at him. The mana bullet pierces his head like a high-caliber round. After taking him down, Asta admits Callahan was impressive. Any other mage would have died from that first surprise attack. His spells were as deadly as ever, but that final blast worked against him. Asta knows that if Callahan had teamed up with the troubleshooters for a war of attrition, he would have lost. Even though he is getting stronger, his mana reserves are still low, not impressive at all. He walks to Callahan's body and searches it. Luck is on his side. He finds the grimoire he was looking for. Most battle mages carry their grimoires personally because they trust no one. Even though the spatial pouch has an owner recognition spell, Asta is not worried. He will figure out how to undo it later. Just then, Perun appears. Asta tells him he is late to the party. Perun reveals he was dealing with the remaining small fry. He then asks if Asta is one of the people after him. Asta tells him to use his brain. He just killed one of Declan's men, which should explain everything. Hearing this, Perun realizes WJI sent him and finally lowers his guard. Still, he is confused about why Paul approached him. He wonders if WJI split the research into 2 papers and sent 2 envoys. Asta suggests the one Paul delivered might be fake. He believes WJI used it as bait to draw Declan's men into the open, like a fisherman reeling in a catch. WJI might be tightening security in the region while weakening Declan's influence. Even so, Asta feels something is off. Despite the blackout spell, the fight was massive. The Imperial Knights should have appeared. That can only mean one thing: they were bribed by Declan as well. Perun asks if Asta is the courier. Asta answers by pulling out the thesis and handing it over. After taking it, Perun asks if he knows what is inside. Asta replies he is not a fool, so of course he knows. Perun stands cautiously. Asta tells him he does not mind fighting, but he should think carefully because his choice will decide whether he lives or dies. Perun agrees he makes a fair point and asks if there is anything he wants in return. Asta is confused. Perun explains that WJI only trusts people similar to himself, and since Asta fits that description, he must earn his trust by offering something back. Asta thinks for a moment, then says he wants a book. Perun is confused, so Asta explains his plan to build a grand tower filled with books for everyone to read. He wants a book written from Perun's perspective on arcane science. Perun is surprised, but he agrees to do it. After their brief exchange, Asta says it is time to leave. Perun asks how they will stay in contact. Asta produces a communication crystal and hands it to him. He explains the 2 halves are linked. If one breaks, the other shatters as well. Break 1 shard to call him. Break multiple shards if there is trouble. After explaining its use, Asta vanishes. Not long after, the Imperial Knights arrive to secure the area. They evacuate the Academy students in case of another attack. During the chaos, Asta blends in with the crowd. He meets Damien, who asks where he has been. Asta replies he was handling something. Meanwhile, he is certain that after this incident, the Declan family will pull back for a while. As Damien keeps talking, Asta wonders why his sigil reacted during the battle. He felt power resonate through the barrier when blocking Callahan's attack, something that never happens normally. He is grateful though. The sigil helped him block the counterattack. Thinking back, it finally clicks: the rejection phenomenon. A technique used by mages to prevent their own magic from harming them. Asta is so deep in thought that he does not realize he speaks out loud. Damien hears him and asks what he meant by saying he does not get it. Damien demands to know what secret Asta is hiding. Asta ignores him and keeps thinking about why the sigil reacted at that exact moment and what could have triggered it. Still, he knows he needs more research. The Academy library should give him some clues. While he is lost in thought, a student suddenly calls his name from behind and introduces himself as Chenbi. Asta does not take him seriously at first, until Chenbi mentions that he is a pretty good fighter. For a split second, Asta considers killing him, since he might know too much, or simply letting him be. Before he can decide, Chenbi says something that saves his life. He explains that Asta's fight with the combat division during the entrance ceremony left a strong impression on him. That is when Asta realizes he gained respect, not suspicion. Here he was thinking he had left a bad mark. He stays modest, telling Chenbi that his opponent lacked ether and things would be different in a rematch. Chenbi scratches his head nervously but keeps following them, saying he would like to stick with Asta. He smiles and admits he has not gotten close to anyone yet, and it feels awkward to join other groups. Even though Asta is not fully comfortable with it, he tells him to do whatever he wants. Chenbi is relieved. He expected to be pushed away. From there, he keeps starting conversations with Asta, and strangely enough, it brings Asta a sense of normalcy. Ever since returning in time, he has been surrounded by lunatics. He had almost forgotten what normal felt like. To truly settle into a normal life, Asta believes he has to fully integrate into the academy. On their first lecture day, Damien is already complaining about how sleepy he is. Moments later, Chenbi shows up as well. He cannot believe they are required to attend class after all the chaos from the previous day. Asta agrees, saying it is harsh. From what Asta can tell, Chenbi is not from a wealthy family, but he is not timid either. He seems cheerful and grounded. Chenbi then mentions that their M3 homeroom teacher is Professor Jara. Asta is confused since he has never heard of her. Chenbi explains that she is a big shot, a woman who once slaughtered a horde of trolls single-handedly. Just then, Jara enters the room, and Asta immediately recognizes her from the entrance ceremony. She stands before the class and reintroduces herself. She tells them the chaos from the previous day has nothing to do with them, and they are free to continue learning. Before anything else, she announces a mana assessment test. It will evaluate both mana quantity and quality. Then she asks which one they think is more important. A girl named Argan raises her hand. She says there is no definite answer, but if someone already possesses a certain amount of mana, then quality matters more. Jara asks for her reasoning. Argan explains that when facing a mage of equal strength, the one with superior mana quality would naturally have the advantage. Asta immediately recognizes it as the textbook answer. From experience, he knows mana quality affects accuracy, stability, and spell power. Having massive reserves means nothing if you cannot hit your target. Jara looks visibly disappointed. She asks Argan's family name. Argan replies she is from Baron Pelham's household. Jara looks disgusted, saying she expected as much. Argan is left in tears. Jara throws the question back to the class. No one wants the same treatment. Suddenly, she points at a student named Ipliel. Startled, he stands and nervously says mana quantity is more important. In large-scale battles, total reserves could have greater impact. Asta partly agrees. There are situations where quantity outweighs quality. Both are vital, it depends on the variables. But just like before, Jara is disappointed and gives Ipliel the same harsh response. She continues calling students one after another, determined to get a satisfying answer. The class starts mumbling about how stressful she is on the very first day. Meanwhile, Asta thinks carefully about what answer would satisfy her. Then Jara suddenly says she has heard enough. They were all close, but there was never a correct answer. She was not looking for one. She asks if their responses truly came from their hearts or if they were simply trying to say what she wanted to hear. A mage must never lose conviction, no matter when or where. They must not be swayed by temptation and must have the strength to uphold their will to the end. With the answers they gave, can they truly call themselves real mages? The most important thing, she says, is that they must become true mages. She urges them to carry that message in their hearts. Asta realizes he was right. She has a strange way of teaching, but it works. When it is time for the mana measurement, she calls Argan first. To everyone's shock, Jara announces Argan as the class representative. She admits her earlier answer was impressive. As representative, she will record the measurements. Asta is surprised, then impressed. This is how Jara teaches. Stay true to yourself. The students are stunned to see the measuring device, something rare and hard to obtain. Jara smiles almost wickedly and says it is time to know their mana levels. The true purpose of the test is to see if there is a monster among them. She explains the device is simple. To demonstrate, she asks Argan to place her hand on the crystal orb and channel her mana into it. Argan steps forward and does so. The orb lights up brilliantly. She is stunned. Jara points to the main indicator. Mana quality ranges from 1 to 10. Argan's level is 4, impressive for a freshman. Last year's average was 3. Argan blushes and thanks her. Next is mana quantity. She pours her mana in and stops at 17. Jara calls it impressive again since last year's freshman averaged 15. She praises Argan's hardworking nature. The bar is now set high. The rest of the class silently prays for good results. Asta can already tell Argan will grow into a capable mage. Soon, Jara excuses herself, saying she has something to attend to and leaves the assistant professor to continue the measurements. Students go up one by one, discovering their strengths and weaknesses. Chenbi nudges Asta, telling him to get ready. Asta agrees, but Damien is asleep again. Then a student named Furion steps forward. Her results shock everyone. Mana quality 6, quantity 20. Asta notices she is from the same house as Dahlia, though with a different hair color, likely a branch family member. Even the assistant acknowledges her impressive background, though he tells her there is still room to improve. Moments later, Damien wakes up confused. Asta first tells him to go back to sleep, then changes his mind and explains they are measuring mana. Damien seems uninterested and asks why they are doing it at all. Asta says he has no idea, but since it costs nothing, they might as well check. Realizing it is during class time, Damien suddenly gets excited and declares he will measure his mana too. Asta cannot believe he is actually rushing forward. Students whisper about how young Damien looks. Asta has already gained attention for beating up his opponent earlier. Among them, Chenbi remains the only unfamiliar face. Ara is not pleased about being labeled a student beater when Damon was the one excited about the whole thing. Damon steps onto the stage, and the teacher urges him to try out the device. After confirming what he needs to do, Damon places his hand on the ball, and the moment the indicator takes the reading, the entire class falls into shock. No one can believe what's happening right in front of them, and even Furion nearly breaks her neck staring at the board. Damien has just entered the category of those called monsters. His mana quality is level 9, and his mana quantity is 67. Out of everyone in the room, Asta is the only one who isn't surprised. He understands that people freeze in the presence of greatness. Asta already knew Damon was a genius, but he never expected him to completely crush the high scores. As usual, Damien doesn't even grasp the implications of what he just did. He casually asks if his score is considered high. At that moment, Asta finally realizes how Damon became a monster. Still, he believes Damien could have been someone who changed the world if he had followed the right path. This time, Asta plans to nurture him and make sure he chooses correctly, because the Blandor family is the only one capable of rivaling Declan. Aa intends to push Damien beyond limits he once thought impossible. The teacher then warns Damon not to let the score get to his head, reminding him that he still needs to work hard. Damien assures him he understands. Damon rushes over to Asta and asks if he has measured his mana yet. Asta says no. Damien urges him to do it, and Asta already knows the students are waiting to compare him to Damien. With no way out, he walks up to the ball, deciding to keep things low-key and avoid attention. After subtly adjusting his mana, Asta touches the ball. But he quickly realizes the device is calibrated too low, meaning even his reduced mana has triggered something extreme. The system initially reads 10 for Asta, then suddenly shuts down, displaying an error message because the threshold was exceeded. Damien cheers in excitement, but Asta quickly tells the teacher they might need to rerun the test since the machine malfunctioned. Damien is the only one who understands that Asta is deliberately holding back. The teacher resets the device. This time, Asta suppresses his mana even further, and the reading shows 3 for quality and 15 for quantity. The students immediately accept the result, exactly as Asta intended. He's relieved he pulled it off. Damon, however, is clearly dissatisfied and even mutters a curse under his breath. At the first department of magic, JRA stands in her office watching the reconstruction of the second mage hall. Moments later, the assistant teacher Uavi arrives with the mana measurement records. JRA reviews them, commenting on the scores that catch her attention, and notes that Damon will need proper guidance. Then her eyes land on Asta's record. She notices the retest caused by an error message. The moment she sees that, she realizes Asta is no ordinary child and decides to keep a close eye on him. Later, the trio is seen creating toys using magic. Chenbi is stunned by how effortlessly Damien exerts his mana, like it costs him nothing. Watching this, Chenbi concludes he's just a small fry in comparison. Ah notices Chenbi's reaction and understands exactly how he feels, though he wishes Chenbi would simply accept reality and move forward. After they finish playing, Damon admits he's had fun and is glad he came to the academy. Asta hears this and quietly sighs in relief, grateful that Damon is adjusting well. Some time later, Asta finally gains access to the spatial pocket he obtained earlier. Because of his weak magical sense, it took him an entire month to unlock it. During that period, he also absorbed the elixir he received from Blandor into Manhwa form, and he has gained considerable knowledge at the academy as well. Now that he can open the pocket, he dives in immediately. The first thing he finds is a potion. Next, he pulls out a cloak which he considers useless. He also discovers a defensive artifact which he sees as a good find. Finally, he uncovers one of Declan's secret grimoires, the Red Flame. It's a lesser secret spell derived from the Blue Flame once used by Farron. Apparently, it's powerful enough to burn through formidable forces. Since he can't learn it immediately, he realizes it will take time. Later, the students gather for their midterm performance evaluation. Aa is surprised by how many people are present, and Chenbi explains that all first years are assembled. He also mentions a rumor that their test might involve the canyon breakthrough, as someone overheard a staff member discussing it. The midterm evaluation is divided into 3 parts. First is the trial corridor, a maze-like sewer where students must reach the goal. Second is the canyon breakthrough, a race to the finish line. Third is the simulator, where students duel either a person or a monster. Although Asta knows the structure well, he isn't worried since he only needs to pass. However, he is concerned about Chenbi, who isn't as capable as him or Damien. As students debate which test it will be, a thunderous voice orders them to be quiet. It's Pin who introduces himself as the overseer of the evaluation. Without delay, Pin announces that their test will be the trial corridor. Chenbi nearly panics on the spot, realizing his small plan is already ruined. Perrin then instructs each class to line up and begins explaining the rules. The trial corridor is a maze-like sewer, and students must navigate it to reach the final gate. All paths eventually lead to the end, regardless of which route they take. Hearing this, Chenbi smiles, thinking the test will be easy. Then Perun clarifies that what he described is only the basic structure, which would make the test meaningless. He reveals the golems he has prepared. Chenbi freaks out at the sight of them, unable to believe golems are being used in a performance test. Perun explains that while the golems are slow and dull, they are still tough for their level. Their cores are exposed, and their durability has been adjusted, giving students an advantage. Even so, he warns that in a closed space the golems will catch up quickly. Seeing the students' anxious faces, Perun is disappointed, though he believes some of them still show potential. After observing them closely, he concludes that Damien doesn't appear to be among the top contenders, judging by his dull expression. Perun continues outlining the rules. The golems act as gatekeepers, meaning students can either defeat them or move past them. Each student will receive a test bracelet with protective power similar to a force field. The moment that force field breaks, the student is disqualified and the golems will ignore them. After finishing the rules, Perun notices the students remain unmotivated, so he adds an incentive. He tells them to impress him however they can, promising a personal reward to the winner, something they will absolutely adore. The moment Asta hears this, he becomes fired up. He wants whatever Perun is offering. It's revealed that Rapida is the largest library on the eastern continent, divided into upper, middle, and lower tiers. Due to his status, Asta can only access the lower tier. When he searched there for clues, he found nothing. With that in mind, he realizes he must gain access to the middle or upper tier to find what he seeks. Unfortunately, those sections are restricted to royalty, arch-nobles, and distinguished houses. There is, however, another path, recommendations from 3 or more professors. Understanding this, Asta decides he must impress Payan. Once Perun finishes explaining everything, he grants the students a short preparation period to collect supplies from the professors. The students rush to the assistants, demanding high-level items to help them during the test. Most requests are denied, as they aren't allowed to bring anything that would give them an unfair advantage. While everyone argues and panics over what to take, Damon calmly requests 20 vine seeds. The assistant professor is surprised, pointing out that plant magic contradicts his primary element. Damon simply replies that he doesn't have a primary element, which means he can use plant magic as well. Asta is surprised when he sees this, because he never expected the nonchalant Damien to be making preparations too. At the same time, he's curious to see whether Chenbi will finally break out of his shell. Once preparations are complete, Perun announces that he will assign their starting locations. They are to check their names to see where they've been placed. Asta checks and finds himself assigned to starting point 3. Looking around, he notices that the other 2 have been placed at different points. In Asta's group, there are 6 other students, and he doesn't even know their names. Moments later, an arrogant guy approaches him with 2 lackeys in tow. He introduces himself as Dibe and says he has a proposition, since Asta isn't bad with a blade. Asta tells him to continue, and Dibe reveals that he's interested in buying the bracelets of students who get eliminated. He offers 30 gold coins per bracelet. He adds that Asta and his 2 friends are off the list, meaning he's ready to pay 90 gold coins in total. Asta is surprised. 30 gold coins is roughly a peasant family's monthly income. Dibe expects him to jump at the offer, assuming his poor background will make him desperate. At the same time, Dibe's goal is simple: protect himself. Asta actually agrees with the logic. Even if it looks cowardly to some, it's just making the best of what you have. And since they're rich, they might as well throw money at their problems. Then Asta asks why he calculated only 90 gold. Dibe assumes the amount isn't enough and raises the offer by 5 gold per bracelet, making it 105 gold coins. Asta calmly points out that the math still doesn't add up. There are 3 other members on Dibe's team, plus Dibe and his 2 lackeys, making 6 in total. He then asks why Dibe removed the price of his own life from the calculation. By Asta's math, the correct amount should be 210 gold coins. The trio is left stunned. Dibe is furious at the sheer confidence radiating from Asta. He raises the offer again to 40 gold coins per bracelet, believing 35 wasn't enough. Asta immediately counters, stating that the new total is 240 gold coins. Dibe reacts angrily. He can't believe Asta is trying to squeeze every drop of profit out of the deal, even if it costs him his life. Seeing no way to win this negotiation, Dibe decides to back off. He calls the deal off and turns to leave. Asta stops him, asking where he thinks he's going. He informs Dibe that he already owes him money. That fully triggers Dibe. He demands to know what Asta means. Asta gives a simple analogy. There are 3 packs and 3 people in a carriage. Even if the packs are removed, you still have to pay for the people riding inside. With a smug smile, Asta demands 120 gold coins, 40 per member. Dibe's lackeys immediately step in, saying Asta is nothing in their master's presence. One of them gets overexcited and steps forward, threatening to beat Asta up. He instantly realizes that's a mistake when he sees the shift in Asta's stance and hears the calm change in his voice. To avoid trouble, Dibe decides to pay the 120 gold coins. Just as he's about to hand it over, Asta raises the price again to 160 gold coins, stating that his targets are nobles. Dibe has no choice but to pay. Still, he promises Asta will suffer for it. When it's time to enter the corridor, Pune reminds them that if the bracelet's function is disabled, they're eliminated. The field barrier activates against spells that directly strike the body or attacks imbued with mana. If the barrier breaks, the bracelet stays behind and the wearer is forcibly transferred out of the testing grounds. Perun assures them they have nothing to worry about in terms of injuries. With instructions complete, he orders his assistants to begin the test. In an instant, the students are warped into the testing grounds, and the internal footage begins broadcasting. While reviewing the starting points, Perun notices that Damien and Dahlia share the same location. Suddenly, the feed from starting point 3 freezes. Panic spreads among the assistants, who think they failed to check something properly. Perun tells them to calm down, insisting he personally verified everything before the test began. Unknown to them, a battle has already erupted between Asta and Dibei's lackeys. Minutes earlier, Dibei and his men attacked Asta the moment they entered the grounds. Since getting hit by magic means instant disqualification, Asta dashes forward, dodging their opening attacks. He moves so fast that Dibei and his group are left stunned as Asta reaches them like lightning. Before they can react, he's already striking, not to kill but to knock them out of the game. He moves like the Flash, delivering crushing blows that send them crashing down. After putting them in their place, Asta still demands payment, telling Dibei he now owes 320 gold coins for his insolence. On top of that, it's 1 silver coin per hit. By the time Asta finishes with Dibei, the guy looks like an inflated balloon. Asta makes sure they're fully disqualified, then calmly collects their bracelets. Since he needs Perun's recommendation, he realizes he needs 2 more bracelets to secure his reward. He sits down to think about his next move, aware he'll still need another professor's endorsement. For a moment, he considers destroying the trial corridor since only 4 pillars support the structure. He quickly dismisses the idea. That would make him the enemy of the entire eastern continent, and that would eventually get him killed. In the end, he decides to keep moving until he finds an opportunity. Meanwhile, Damien has taken a completely different route. He uses the vine seeds to seize control of several golems, manipulating them and turning the area around him into chaos. Students panic as they try to understand how he's controlling golems with vine seeds. They attempt to destroy the golems, but the vines wrapped around them render their spells ineffective. As chaos spreads, Chenbi decides he has no reason to get involved. His goal is simply to qualify. He runs off hoping to find a safe hiding spot. Suddenly, his bracelet begins to sparkle. Chenbi assumes he was hit by magic without noticing. Dejected, he sits down, waiting to be transferred out, convinced he's already disqualified. Minutes pass, nothing happens. He's left completely confused. Then a sinister voice echoes through the grounds. It declares that it has no demands, only a mission to bring consequences to those who angered the great being. Damon is about to knock out a student, but he pauses to listen. The voice then reveals its true intent. It plans to kill all the students. At that moment, Perun and the assistants realize something is terribly wrong. The entire system has gone offline and nothing is under their control anymore. Seeing the assistants panic, Perun orders them to stop shaking and immediately summon the professors. JRO is to be their top priority. The assistants rush off to alert the academy staff. Perun fumes. Someone daring to interfere with the academy's midterm evaluation is unforgivable. Inside the corridor, all the golems have fallen under enemy control. Now moving faster and deadlier than before, they become a serious threat. Aa is shocked to see the golems precisely tracking him. He quickly concludes that someone tampered with the control system. Considering the massive number outside, he realizes all the stored golems have been released. Being the battle addict he is, Asta decides he has no choice but to enjoy himself while dealing with the main culprit. Chenbi, lost in thoughts about his miserable life, hears rapid footsteps approaching. He turns as a figure emerges from the darkness. It's Asta. Chenbi is about to rush over and hug him, but then he notices the swarm of golems chasing behind. Asta catches up easily and tells him to run. Only seconds into the chase, Asta realizes Chenbi doesn't have the stamina to outrun the golems. At this rate, he'll be caught in no time. Asta quickly switches to plan B and tells Chenbi to hand over his bracelet. Chenbi is confused, but Asta explains that the golems are targeting the bracelets because they're linked to the control system, basically acting like alarm bells. Understanding this, Chenbi hands it over but asks what Asta plans to do. Asta tells him he'll buy time so Chenbi can run and find Damien. He reminds him that he has a family, so logically, he should be the one to survive. Hearing that, Chenbi remembers his father's words, always telling him to focus on his magic. His whole family has supported him since he was young, encouraging him every step of the way. Summoning his courage, Chenbi prepares to leave Asta behind but urges him to make it out alive. As he runs, he tells himself he has no choice but to survive. His family sacrificed too much for him. Suddenly, he recalls his father calling him his proud son, and that thought hits him hard. He starts questioning himself. Is he really someone worth being proud of? He realizes he's been indecisive, timid, nothing special. The fact that he just abandoned his friend becomes the wake-up call he needed. He decides he won't add more guilt to what he already carries. Chenbi turns around, determination burning in his eyes. He won't give up. He'll use the strongest magic he knows, the one his teacher left for him. As he prepares the spell, he prays it works. It's called Spear of Earth, a name with weight behind it. a spell designed to pierce anything like a cavalry lance tearing through armor. Asta is still dealing with the golems when he hears Chenbi shout. He turns to see Chenbi, blood trickling from his nose as he completes the spell. Thanks to the warning, Asta dodges just in time. The destructive spear tears through everything in its path. When the dust settles, a massive crater stretches across the ground. The spell is so powerful that Chenbi starts coughing up blood. He collapses, but Asta catches him before he hits the ground. Exhausted, Chenbi rambles about how his master named the spell, about how grand it is. Asta disagrees. The caster is the one who proves how powerful a spell truly is. It all depends on how it's used. Suddenly, Chenbi starts acting like he's about to die. Asta forces a potion down his throat, telling him he'll be fine. Within moments, Chenbi regains his strength, completely dazzled. Meanwhile, Asta wonders what to do with him. Dragging him around isn't an option. He pauses and senses the flow of mana in the area. After identifying a safer path, he directs Chenbi toward the other students. Chenbi asks what he plans to do. Asta replies that he has business to attend to. He's traced the corrupted mana to the control room and he's eager to check it out. As he moves closer, a familiar feeling creeps in. He knows this sensation. It's not Declan. After thinking for a moment, he realizes the truth. It's the demonic realm. Memories flood back, the unmistakable demonic energy he once felt. Asta's expression shifts, his psycho side surfacing as he recalls one particular man behind it all, Frizen. Inside the control room, Frizen is ecstatic. His experiment is working. The demonic beasts have manifested, and everything is functioning perfectly. It all went smoothly thanks to the ancient artifact on his hand. With its spatial severing ability, he accessed the demon realm without casualty and seized control of the room. As he celebrates, a figure behind him questions his recklessness, asking if he really moved forward with something he wasn't fully certain about. Frizen responds that by generating demonic energy, he has already fulfilled their contract. The man steps out of the shadows, a mask covering his mouth. He says Frizen is free to act however he wants, as long as it benefits him. All he desires is the disgrace of a certain professor. Frizen bows, addressing him as the Great Hound of House Vimmer. The Hound coldly tells him not to utter his family's name with his filthy mouth. Deep down, Frizen is furious. The Vimmer family is only a vassal under Declan, yet he must bow to this man. Still, he endures the humiliation because Vimmer grants him a place to conduct his experiments. He reminds himself to tolerate any dishonor thrown his way. Together with his allies, he has formed a forbidden magic sect known as Salvation. The Hound asks how long it will take to seize full control of the core, warning that a student is approaching. Instead of fear, Frizen feels excitement. His first true test subject. He's eager to see what happens when someone is exposed to dense demonic energy. Normally, people die. But ancient texts suggest otherwise. For those with mana or ether, it could create something else entirely, a human beast. Meanwhile, Asta is trapped. Golems behind him, demonic beasts ahead. With no way back, he moves forward. Frizen continues smiling until he notices something strange about Asta. Asta smirks and tells him he's coming for him. Frizen's smile vanishes. The Hound asks if he knows the boy. Frizen insists he doesn't and demands to know who he is, yet he trembles. How does this kid know his name? Then he sees Asta pull out the bracelets he collected. In a flash, Asta dashes toward the demonic beasts and slaps the bracelets onto them. The effect is immediate. The golems and demonic beasts begin targeting each other. They tear themselves apart, clearing a path while Asta stands untouched. Frizen clutches his head, screaming in frustration as his creations destroy one another. Then he realizes a bigger threat. Asta is already charging through the barrier toward the control room. Before the Hound can react, Asta enters. He looks at Frizen and says he's been waiting a long time for this moment. Elsewhere, Chenbi reunites with Damien and nearly loses his mind when he sees the destruction Damien caused with the golems. Other students are gathered there as well. Dahlia asks Chenbi how he made it. That's when it hits him. The bracelets must be discarded, they're being tracked. He tells the others, but they don't believe him. They accuse him of trying to steal their bracelets. Shocked, Chenbi argues that with everything happening, no one cares about bracelets anymore. He explains their link to the control room, acting like tracking bells. Someone asks if he figured that out himself. Chenbi admits it was Asta. A girl mocks him, saying trash like Asta tricked him into throwing his bracelet away. Another student claims Chenbi is scared of failing alone, so he wants everyone else to ditch theirs too. They continue insulting Asta, and it doesn't sit well with Chenbi. He knows what Asta did. Before he can respond, Damien speaks. He talks about the first time he met Asta, how that moment defined their bond. That's why he trusts him. Without hesitation, Damien removes his bracelet and throws it to the ground, telling the others they can take it if they want. Then he calls Chenbi, saying it's time to move. Chenbi is stunned by Damien's resolve, forced to rethink everything he thought he knew about him. Back in the control room, Asta tells Frizen how badly he's wanted to kill him. Frizen remains confused, insisting he doesn't even know who Asta is. He turns to the Hound, reminding him that he's supposed to protect him. The Hound asks again if Frizen truly has no connection to the boy. Friesen confirms it. Since they're bound by contract, the Hound finally steps forward. He reveals his weapon, a terrifying chain sword, and declares he will kill Asta without leaving a trace. Asta recognizes him. The Hound belongs to the prestigious Vimmer family, known for their piercing power like master archers, yet one child was raised separately. That child is the Hound. The Hound is a guy who acts like a real hunting dog on the front lines of a hunt. Just then, Asta asks him why he's sticking around trash like Friesen. The Hound is shocked to hear that family's name in Asta's mouth, and he asks if he even knows who they are. Asta ignores him and repeats the same question. At this point, the Hound thinks the fear of death has driven Asta insane. He demands to know what Asta plans to do with that information, but Asta just keeps asking the same thing. Agitated, the Hound angrily throws his weapon at Asta, but Asta dodges it and repeats the question again. Meanwhile, he keeps walking forward. The Hound believes he can finish him before he gets close. He plans to use a retrieval spell on his weapon to catch Asta off guard, but to his utter shock, Asta catches the weapon just as he's about to reach him. Now face to face, Asta tells him he has raised dogs before, and they get agitated when the same sound is repeated. The Hound is furious. He can't believe Asta is comparing him to a dog. However, Asta calmly tells him that he's not comparing him, he's describing him exactly as he is. Before the Hound understands what's happening, Asta strikes him with his own weapon. Fear grips Friesen as he watches this unfold. He screams at the Hound, reminding him he can't lose to some unknown brat. But the Hound is already under Asta's thumb. Before he can react again, Asta delivers a body-shattering punch that finishes him off, leaving Friesen in complete shock. Once he's done with the Hound, Asta turns to Friesen and mocks him, asking if he's still hiding behind someone else just like he always does. Friesen is furious and pulls out a demonic device. But before he can activate it, Asta relieves him of his hand. Friesen screams as blood gushes from the severed limb. In that moment, he realizes he's finished and starts screaming at Asta to stay away. Desperate, Friesen resorts to threats. He tells Asta that if he kills him, he won't be able to stop the demonic realm. Friesen reminds him that his comrades will die in that realm if it remains active, but Asta's reply leaves him stunned. He says he's willing to wait for the demonic realm to consume everyone. He tells Friesen to enjoy the show because he's next. That's when Friesen realizes he's facing a psycho. Friesen can't believe Asta doesn't care about the demonic realm at all. He's even willing to let his friends die. Because of that, Friesen starts wondering if Asta is even human. He reminds Asta again that everyone will die if he doesn't stop the demonic realm, but Asta calmly says he doesn't care. Friesen demands to know why. Asta suddenly dashes forward and tells him he doesn't care because the method is simple. Asta grabs his right hand and removes the artifact. Then he tells Friesen that he's not the only one who understands how the artifact works. Asta puts it on, places his hand on the core, and successfully dislodges the demonic realm. Friesen is left speechless. Asta tells him there's no way he could ever forget him. He mentions that Declan pinned a series of crimes on Friesen before having him executed. Preventing that was the reason Asta started chasing Friesen in the first place. Asta narrates how long he chased Friesen, to the point he nearly lost his mind. Even as the best tracker, he couldn't find Friesen. He admits Friesen was an incredible runner moving across the entire planet. Asta searched everywhere, leaving his hands soaked in blood. After chasing him for so long, he eventually tracked Friesen to the demonic realm. Without hesitation, Asta entered it. Monsters attacked him from every direction, and the demonic energy eroded both his body and mind. In the end, he still couldn't find Friss and he gave up. He crawled out of the demonic realm and was met by a troubleshooter who had been waiting outside. The man said he had news but was too afraid to enter the demonic realm to deliver it, so he waited until Asta came out. The news was about Friesen. He was dead. Apparently, Declan had captured him and squeezed out every detail about forbidden magic and the artifact. Asta talks about how empty he felt after hearing that. He sat in front of the demonic realm for days, just staring at the sky. After listening to this story, Friesen says he has no idea what Asta is talking about because he's just an attendant. Asta ignores him, noticing he's bleeding too much. He quickly opens a potion and forces it down his throat, telling him he can't die yet because he still has to hear the end of the story. Deep down, Friesen is searching for an escape route since Asta just gave him a slim chance to survive. Asta continues. He talks about seeing a wyvern flying freely in the sky. That's when he realized he had become hollow, just venting his emotions. Because of that, he erased the idea of revenge from his mind. But fate had other plans. He ran into Friesen again. Friesen is still thinking of escape when Asta suddenly dashes forward and slams his head into the ground. Asta looks terrifying as he tells Friesen he researched everything about the demonic realm and Friesen's experiments, all for the day they would finally meet. He documented how his comrades died. And because of that, he plans to take his time recreating every ounce of pain inside Friesen's body. Tears and sweat stream down Friesen's face as he realizes Asta is going to enjoy what he's about to do. 2 hours later, Jara finally breaks into the testing grounds. She screams at the attendants to find the students immediately. She's furious that ancient magic took her 2 hours to break, and she refuses to lose even one student. Just then, an assistant runs up and shows her the system's core. Everything has been restored to normal and all spells have been removed. Jara orders them to prioritize rescuing the students over catching the intruder. She also forbids any announcements since they don't know how the intruder might react. Soon, every student is accounted for. Jara is utterly confused. They were under attack for over 2 hours, yet not a single student died. Then Perun contacts her saying he has gained access to the internal control room. He shows her what he found. Jara is horrified. 2 mangled bodies lie inside the control room. She wonders who could have carried out something so brutal, and suddenly she remembers Asta's profile she reviewed the other day. Jara turns around and locks eyes with Asta. She can clearly see he's hiding something. Moments later, the headmaster arrives saying he came as quickly as he could. JRA is shocked. He traveled all the way from the eastern outskirts of the continent so fast. The headmaster, however, is pleased that Jara handled everything efficiently. At the same time, he shows interest in the report she sent, claiming Asta was the one who dealt with the intruders in such a brutal way. Every mage has what's called a heart demon. It appears without warning, and most of the time it never ends well. Because Asta always followed orders in his past life as a troubleshooter, he never developed one. But his comrades' deaths through forbidden magic filled him with fury. He buried that rage, or at least he thought he did, until he ran into Friesen in the trial corridor, and everything he had bottled up exploded at once. Asta felt like he was carrying a bomb in his chest, ready to detonate at any moment. Now, a week after the incident, Asta believes it's the perfect time to begin absorbing the Crimson Fire secret tome. In his past life, he mastered a non-attribute secret art given to troubleshooters. But this is his first time learning an elemental art like Crimson Fire. That's why he carefully rereads the early stages over and over, while also checking the ending to make sure everything aligns. Although the primary mana circuits aren't that different from the Heavenly Origin technique, simply circulating mana through the Crimson Fire circuits only produces fire-aspected mana. That means the mental image must be maintained with precision. Asta activates the tome and begins absorbing the mana. A flame ignites in his heart and burns through his hands. After manifesting it, he moves on to compressing the spell. Soon, he realizes the toll on his body is far greater than when he uses non-attribute mana. In the end, he is about to successfully absorb a portion of it, and Asta feels he is now one step closer to Farron. He's glad he has finally added the fire attribute to his basic art. Just as he finishes and begins thinking about his next move, he senses an overwhelming presence outside the building. Without a doubt, someone is calling him out. Asta doesn't hesitate. He steps outside, and to his surprise, it's the old dwarf, the headmaster. The headmaster mentions that he finally understands why Jara was suspicious, because Asta handled the fire mana flawlessly. He admits Asta is something else. Asta casually calls him principal, but the old man corrects him, suggesting he use headmaster instead. Suddenly, the headmaster releases an enormous aura. The pressure surges and Asta begins to question what's happening. But he is a former troubleshooter, fear is not his domain. He stands his ground. The headmaster finally speaks, saying he is the highest authority in the academy and deserves proper respect and greetings. Asta immediately bows deeply and greets him at the top of his voice. The headmaster tells him to lower his voice. He explains that Asta can shout all he wants, but no one will hear him because he has already blocked the surrounding sound. Asta is surprised and impressed. He had tried to draw attention, but the headmaster was already ahead of him. Asta then asks why he came. The headmaster says he has questions and the answers will decide everything. As the headmaster sits down, an immense pressure is released, forcing Asta to his knees. He tells Asta that Jara believes he is hiding something, and he is curious about what that might be. Asta is stunned by the sheer power. He can't believe this is the same man who struggled to deliver a straight speech in the Grand Hall. He has no choice but to admit the headmaster is a monster in his own right. Still, Asta doesn't think he compares to Declan. Using that thought, Asta finds a gap in the headmaster's mana flow and cuts through it. Once freed from the pressure, he calmly tells the headmaster he knows this visit is about the trial corridor incident. The headmaster is surprised Asta isn't trying to deny it. Asta replies that it isn't worth hiding. He would have preferred it to stay secret, but it's far too significant to conceal. He asks the headmaster what he wants to know. Asta is confused by the way the headmaster moves, one moment stern, the next smiling. The headmaster says he will ask questions and Asta may answer what he can. After all, it's better than beating him up. With that understanding, Asta sits down to listen. Before the questioning begins, Asta uses a parable. He talks about a wyvern being preyed upon, drawing the headmaster's full attention. The headmaster compares their situation to a battlefield and tells Asta to treat him as a senior or he'll knock him out. Asta obediently bows and calls him senior. The headmaster praises his obedience. Now aligned, the headmaster unleashes a furious aura and asks why Asta left the intruders in such a brutal state. Asta is surprised to realize the anger isn't directed at him, but at the intruders. He asks what the headmaster plans to do. The headmaster replies that he will crush the intruders and their sponsors. He assures Asta the emperor will approve. He also plans to gather his old comrades. When Asta hears that, he understands he's referring to the war mages and knights who once fought beside him. These are no ordinary forces. Asta says everything traces back to Declan, but the headmaster sees through the excuse immediately. Asta can't help but admire how sharp he is. It would have been convenient to pin it all on Declan. Finally, Asta admits the true culprit is Vhimmer. The headmaster asks if both intruders are from the Vhimmer family. Asta replies that one of them is Frizen, a Magitech engineer. The headmaster demands material evidence. Asta teases him, asking if he expects to be spoon-fed everything. The headmaster is stunned by Asta's insolence. He asks how Asta even knows about Vhimmer and Frizen. Asta calmly explains everything, carefully avoiding any mention of regression or the grimoire. Even so, he can sense just how furious the headmaster truly is. After venting, the headmaster says he gets the feeling Asta wants to build a tower. He tells him he's willing to fill the entire first-floor shelves with books for him. Asta is pleased and thanks him. The headmaster then adds that he will grant him the admission ticket if Asta does him a favor in return. The moment Asta hears that, he realizes he might be stepping into trouble. The headmaster notices his concern and tells him to relax. The favor can wait. He shifts the topic to the artifact that constructs the demonic realm. It may be dangerous, but its spatial severance ability would be extremely useful for the library Asta wants to build. Asta can't deny that. The artifact would be invaluable, especially since even academy professors struggled to break through it. It could serve as the perfect defense for his tower. The only issue is that Asta lacks deep knowledge in Magitech. The headmaster tells him to consult Jara. He assures Asta he will put in a good word since she's someone he trusts. However, unlike him, Jara will likely be very interested in Asta's identity. To prepare for that, the headmaster creates a cover story. The next day, Asta is studying when Damien and Chenbi arrive. He's shocked at how much weight they've gained in just 1 week. He also notices the other students have grown closer to them. Chenbi explains that everyone is grateful because of the bracelet information Asta provided in the trial corridor. They even received elixirs as gifts, and their parents showed support as well. Chenbi thanks Asta, but Asta says there's no need. Chenbi convinced the students on his own. The change was his doing. Asta then asks what Damien did in the trial corridor. Chenbi replies that Damien bound a golem using plant-type magic and put it to work. He controlled multiple golems and named them Cerberus 1 through 3. Just as Chenbi sits down for a proper conversation, Jara appears and orders Asta to come to her office immediately. When Asta arrives, Jara asks if he knows why he was summoned. He calmly says he doubts it's for counseling. Jara confirms she has heard the story. The headmaster told her Asta is the descendant of an old war mage. She also knows Vhimmer is behind the incident. Asta agrees and calls them all trash, including Declan. He's impressed the headmaster arranged everything so quickly. Instead of exposing Blandor under a false identity, the story now paints him as a wandering descendant of a war mage with a grudge against Declan and Vhimmer. It aligns perfectly with Asta's true objective. Jara admits there are loopholes, but since the headmaster already spoke to her, she won't dig further. She assures Asta she will cover everything up because she believes he is not a threat to the academy. Suddenly, Asta lightens the mood by glancing at Jara's figure and casually remarking that she's much older than him. Jara flares up at first, then forces herself to calm down. She chooses to take it as a compliment and accepts it gracefully. She then praises Asta, saying it was thanks to him that the students in the corridor were preserved. Asta brings up his plan to establish a library and asks for her support in the form of publications. Jara immediately agrees, and Asta lets out a quiet sigh of relief. With this, he has secured the 3 academic ties he needed. Jara then shifts to the main issue, the artifact. Researching it could take a long time and there are risks involved. Still, she says they can always destroy it if necessary. Her real concern is that others may try to seize the gauntlet, especially the forbidden magic cabal known as Salvadium. Asta has never heard of them. Jara explains that Salvadium is a union of those who have mastered forbidden magic. They may operate differently, but they share one goal: to recreate the demonic realm. She is certain Frizen is connected to them, since he was the first to bring that nightmare into reality. Since Frizen is dead, Jara warns Asta that the Cabal will come after him to recover the artifact. She explains they are persistent enough to rival Declan. There is every possibility he could die, even though she has no idea how strong he truly is. Hearing this only excites Asta. Instead of fear, the thought of fighting Salvadium brings him joy. He plans to hunt them down and drag them through hell. Jara is startled by the dangerous grin spreading across his face. Asta then pulls out the gauntlet and hands it to her, asking her to begin research immediately. Jara agrees. Suddenly, an assistant bursts into the room, panic written all over him. He announces that Farron, the head of House Declan, has just arrived at the academy. A wave of shock runs through Asta. The academy erupts into chaos. The headmaster orders everyone to prepare. Students are sent back to their dormitories, security is tightened, and tension fills the air. Headmaster Pun and Jara step forward to welcome Declan. This is the first time the headmaster will meet Farron in person, the man who became head of the family at just 30 due to his overwhelming achievements. It is also common knowledge that the family's atrocities only grew after he took power. Still, the headmaster refuses to judge him solely on rumors. What does irritate him is the fact that Farron rides into the academy. No matter how prestigious a guest may be, tradition demands they walk. Farron arrives before the trio and casually asks if it is time yet. The headmaster frowns and asks what he means. Farron mentions he heard about the attack on the trial corridor. The headmaster responds just as calmly, pointing out that nothing has been officially confirmed. He is furious that the Declan family is behind it, yet Farron acts completely unaware. Farron flashes a polite smile and claims he came to offer assistance. He opens his pocket space and reveals that he has already captured those responsible. Inside lie the severed heads of the attackers. He states that V. Himmer was the leader. Farron proudly adds that he eliminated V. Himmer and his children cleanly. From a rooftop, Asta watches the entire exchange. He is not surprised that Farron killed V. Himmer. What troubles him is the timing. The only person he told about V. Himmer and Declan was the headmaster, and now Farron appears the very next day. Is it coincidence, or is Farron simply that meticulous? Either way, Asta feels relieved. In this life, he finally has a chance to confront Declan, even if the gap between them is still vast. Days later, the academy slowly returns to normal. However, during his visit, Farron made another move. He announced plans to send a direct blood descendant of House Declan as an undergraduate. It is a classic hostage tactic, something only prestigious houses can afford. As if coordinated, the imperial house soon announces the enrollment of the third princess. Though this will happen next year, Asta already senses the storm forming. To lift morale, the academy organizes the Pistoniki Festival, a victory celebration honoring students mobilized during times of war. Asta believes the academy is equating the trial corridor incident to wartime, a convenient way to ease tension. To sweeten the mood, alcohol is permitted. Even Damien shows interest in drinking with mercenaries. An announcement soon echoes through the grounds. The award ceremony is about to begin. Students who wish to attend are told to gather in front of the Sage Hall. Damien has no interest, but Asta drags him along. He is eager to claim his reward. After the headmaster's speech, the award presentation begins. Names are called one by one. First is Dahlia, then Damien, followed by Evelyn, then Chenby, and finally Asta. As the five walk onto the stage, Asta quietly wonders what Evelyn did to earn an award. He doesn't remember anything about her from his previous life, which unsettles him. Still, she must have done something significant during the trial corridor incident. When Asta's turn comes, the headmaster personally presents him with a top-grade elixir inside an elegant box. After the ceremony, Asta and his friends roam the academy, enjoying the festival until night falls. Brilliant fireworks explode across the sky, capturing everyone's attention. Though Asta thinks it's a waste of money, he silently vows to launch something even grander on the day he builds his library. He imagines standing atop his tower, overlooking the world below. He plans a week-long festival, followed by a sage ascension ceremony. The next morning, a white owl delivers a message from the headmaster. He is to meet at the usual place. Without hesitation, Asta dives out the window and heads toward the designated location. It is an abandoned building once used by troubleshooters, the perfect place for private discussions. Inside, Asta notices the headmaster has cleaned it up. After settling in, Asta asks why he was summoned so early. The headmaster reminds him of the favor he owes. Only then does Asta remember he traded a favor for the library pass. The headmaster claims the task is simple. He wants Asta to deliver a letter to an old friend. Even before taking the letter, Asta knows it won't be simple. He asks for the destination. The headmaster tells him to go to the Hammer and Great Forest where the target is hiding. Asta is stunned. The forest has been preserved since ancient times, filled with monsters and rare magical materials. Finding someone there is no small task. The headmaster teases him, saying others live there too. He only needs to check a few base camps. As Asta prepares to complain about the danger, the headmaster interrupts, saying he forgot to mention something. He places a list in front of Asta. Asta is speechless. Every item listed is rare and incredibly expensive. The headmaster casually asks what Asta was about to say. Asta swallows his complaints and accepts the mission immediately. The reward is far too generous to refuse. Lately, the compensation he's received has been overwhelming. He even secured an Era Workshop artifact production voucher, a privilege so prestigious that even noble houses must wait their turn. There is no way he can decline now. The headmaster explains he originally planned to summon his friend back to the academy. With the demonic realm incident and Declan's interference, he believes it is finally time to request his comrades' help. However, the man claims to be handling personal matters. That is why Asta must go and assist him. Before leaving, Asta manages to negotiate even more compensation. Afterward, he reflects on his next step. He initially planned to increase his mana capacity using the top-grade elixir, but now he has 3. There is no need to focus solely on capacity. Instead, he decides to pursue a technique inspired by knights who reinforce their bodies with ether. The technique is called Manhwa. It allows someone like Asta to surpass the physical limits he once had as a troubleshooter. He is thrilled. Not only is he a mage, he is about to gain abilities similar to a knight. Without wasting time, Asta sits down and absorbs one of the top-grade elixirs. He follows his breathing technique, but this time he pours every drop of mana into his body. The energy seeps into every joint, every muscle fiber, every nerve. Within a minute, his body begins to burn intensely under the firebrand's power. However, he manages to keep his focus and push past the first limitation. He moves carefully, circulating mana through his entire body instead of restricting it to the mana circuits. Once that stabilizes, he injects the mana directly into his muscle fibers, forcing his body to its absolute limit. The pain is overwhelming. It feels like his flesh is being torn apart from the inside. For a moment, he considers stopping, but he keeps going. He squeezes out the very last strand of energy in his body, and in the end, he succeeds in acquiring Manhwa. Not only that, he feels like he has surpassed his original goal. His durability still cannot perfectly support the output, yet he is confident that with reinforced flesh alone, he would not lose to a knight. Once his body fully matures, he knows he will become a serious problem for them. Asta then decides to test his regeneration. He slices his own skin and waits. In his past life, a wound like this would take about 15 minutes to close. But this time, the injury seals almost instantly. It is absurd, troll-level regeneration. Asta stares in disbelief. Somehow he has gained an unexpected bonus. He realizes that if he were to combine this with the healing light tome from WGI, he might become nearly invincible like Damien, the monster of Blandor. Just then, he notices a faint trace of mana lingering in the droplet of blood on the floor. He attempts to control it. To his surprise, the blood emits a bright glow. His blood reacts to mana. If he can properly acquire the Blandor family's healing art, it would take him even further. The tome contains a proliferation formula for regenerating flesh and blood. For a brief moment, Asta considers speaking to WJI about it. He immediately discards the idea. He wants nothing to do with that man. Instead, he decides to speak with Lance. She is scheduled to visit soon for a parent consultation. Not long after, Lance arrives. She expresses her relief that both Asta and Damien are safe. She asks if there were any problems, but Damien assures her he is perfectly fine. Lance then delivers a message from Gamo regarding the Blandor Inner Lake construction and statue design Damien proposed earlier. She admits the proposal was detailed, but Gamo does not approve. Damien is visibly shocked. He had been excited about it. Lance quickly adds that there is still a chance. If Damien places within the top 16 overall in the Academy's midterm evaluation, she will have leverage to negotiate with Gamo on his behalf. The moment she says this, Asta immediately understands her strategy. Lance reassures Damien that he does not need to worry. He has Asta and Chenbi to support him. She then turns to the two of them and promises generous rewards if they help Damien succeed. Asta realizes he has been cornered, but he has no choice. He needs the proliferation formula and Lance is the key. With that in mind, Asta confidently assures her that he will help. Later, after Lance leaves, Asta asks how much basic magic theory Damien actually knows. Damien stares at him blankly as if he does not even understand what those words mean. So Asta asks him to bring out his notes and textbooks. Damien casually drops every single book in his room right in front of them. The moment they see the pile, both Chenbi and Asta think the same thing. This is pure, unadulterated hell. Chenbi hesitantly asks if Damien at least finished the assignments their professor gave them. Damien confidently says that he finished them all. Chenbi lets out a sigh of relief, but Asta is suspicious. He flips through the assignments, only to find random graffiti everywhere, along with dramatic words like blood, sweat, and tears scribbled across the pages. Asta realizes that the only saving grace Damien has is that he is not completely terrible at the general electives like culture and history, probably because of all the tutoring he received growing up as a noble. Still, Asta lacks the confidence to teach Damien. Confidence to beat Damien into a pulp, however, that he definitely has. Just then someone approaches them. Asta looks up and asks what Purian wants. The boy immediately corrects him, saying his name is Furian. Furian then calmly says that he might be able to help them. Asta narrows his eyes suspiciously. Furian tells them not to look so skeptical and pulls out a paper. Chenbi recognizes it instantly. Furian proudly explains that it is a complete collection of the Academy's past exam papers from the last 10 years. Not only that, it also includes a compilation of every professor's exam patterns. He even organized everything neatly. With a smug smile, Furion asks if that is not enough to earn their respect. Chenbi quickly reads through the material and says there might actually be a chance. Astea, however, still does not like a single thing about Furion, especially after what he did during the trial. Even so, he has no choice but to admit that the material is good. As much as he wants to punch Furion in the face, he holds himself back. Furion then reveals that he has a condition. Astea briefly wonders if he should just hit him anyway. Furion asks for help with interpersonal combat training after the midterm exams. The moment Astea hears that Furion is voluntarily asking to get beaten up, he immediately agrees. He even asks if they should head to the training hall right now. Furion quickly clarifies that he is not the one who needs help, it is someone else. Astea asks what that means. Furion offers to explain and asks Astea to follow him outside the academy while they walk. After a while, Astea asks how far they still have to go. Furion keeps repeating that they are almost there. Soon, they find themselves deep inside the back alleys. Astea is seriously starting to consider punching Furion, but then they finally arrive, a private training ground. Looking around, Astea can only think one thing. These people clearly have a lot of money to burn. Furion announces that they have arrived. There, they see Dahlia training. Furion quietly whispers to Dahlia, asking if she is really sure Astea is someone worth learning from. Dahlia immediately tells Furion to stop. She firmly says that she is not going to borrow the power of her family just to grow stronger. Then she turns to Astea. She says that she is asking him instead. Astea listens, then calmly says that he needs one more thing from this deal. He asks Dahlia to give him Furion. He wants to use Furion to tutor Damien. Dahlia pauses to consider it. Furion immediately protests, asking if Dahlia is seriously falling for such ridiculous nonsense. He reminds Astea that Dahlia has already paid him with the study materials. Astea admits that she did pay him, but he calmly explains that she still has not settled the debt for framing Chenbi during the trial. After a moment, Dahlia accepts the deal. Furion is outraged. He asks why Dahlia is deciding his fate. He refuses, proudly declaring that he is a member of the great house of Dinai. Astea coldly responds, calling him Mr. Proud Bloodline. He says he needs a punching bag and Furion looks sturdier than Hickster. Furion instantly understands the threat. Without another word, he quickly turns around and says he needs to prepare for the exams. Then he leaves. Astea sighs in relief. He turns back to Dahlia and says he is ready to do his job since the payment has been received. He asks if she wants him to teach her interpersonal combat. Dahlia simply nods. Meanwhile, in a luxurious restaurant, Evelyn says that there is no turning back now. She asks if the man sitting across from her is truly sure about this. The man remains silent while Evelyn continues eating. Evelyn sighs and says she worries that he is pushing himself too hard. Debay sits across from her, staring quietly as a bead of cold sweat rolls down his cheek. Evelyn continues speaking. She explains that because of a certain incident during the trial, her customers have been complaining non-stop. She could not even acquire a single bracelet from the event because of someone. Debay lowers his head and admits that he has no excuses for what happened. Evelyn then casually mentions that she heard a rumor. Apparently, the questions for the midterm evaluations will be finalized by next week. Debay looks surprised and asks if she is telling him to steal the exam papers. Evelyn gasps dramatically, asking when she ever suggested something so dangerous. She calmly explains that she merely told him about her business problems and hoped he might help her with them. With a chilling look in her eyes, she asks if Debay understands what she is implying. Debay remains silent. Evelyn takes his silence as agreement. She slides a piece of paper across the table and tells him he might want to visit that place. There is someone there who excels at this kind of work. Finally, she tells him to hurry up and finish his meal. Back at Dahlia's training center, Astea wonders why Dahlia, of all people, wants him to teach her. In his past life, he would have beaten the daylight out of her just for suggesting something this ridiculous. That is how deep the bad blood between them ran. If it were not for her reinforcements, he would have killed her dozens of times over. Still, once she became the representative mage of House Dinai, they no longer had many reasons to cross paths. Putting their past grudges aside and calculating the odds, Astea realizes that raising Dahlia's strength could actually be profitable. Even though he is not entirely sure why, Dahlia eventually managed to keep the Declan family in check in the future. That alone makes him wonder if he should pull that timeline a little closer. And besides, if he does not take this chance now, he might never get another opportunity to gleefully beat the crap out of her. So Astea asks her what she thinks is the most critical factor in interpersonal combat. Dahlia admits she is not sure. She simply says she wants to learn the moves he used against Hickster. Astea raises an eyebrow and asks if she seriously expects him to teach her his style. He explains that she needs to find a method that fits her instead. Then he asks her to imagine a fight between a Class 8 mage and a Class 9 mage. He asks which one would win. Dahlia immediately answers that the Class 8 mage would win. Astea shakes his head and tells her she is wrong. According to him, the one who wins is simply the guy who bashes the other guy's head in first. Confused, Dahlia asks what he means. Asta suddenly points his finger, casts a mana bullet, and fires it. He calmly says it is called the first to strike rule. Later that evening, while walking back to the dorms, Asta cannot believe how quickly time passed. If he keeps beating Dahlia up the way he did today, he figures she will grow just fine. Then he wonders what Damien is doing. At that moment, he notices D-Bay walking somewhere nearby. Asta smirks and quietly calls him 310 gold. Meanwhile, D-Bay is lost in thought, wondering what he has got himself into. He has to steal the Academy's exam papers. He knows he cannot walk away from this now. If he refuses, Evelyn has the power to crush him completely. Still, he forces himself to see the situation differently. What Evelyn really wants from this is connections to the nobility. And if he handles the job perfectly, he could become that connection. Last time he failed because of some nobodies getting in his way. But this time, he promises himself things will be different. All the while, he fails to notice that Asta is quietly following him. D-Bay soon enters a tea house. A waiter approaches and politely asks what he would like to order. D-Bay asks for something called dragonhorn tea. He requests it to be served steaming hot but frozen. The waiter nods calmly and says he understands before leaving. This is the place Evelyn told him to visit. Even so, saying that ridiculous code phrase still leaves him feeling embarrassed. The waiter soon returns and casually remarks that D-Bay looks a bit flustered by the atmosphere. He explains that many people are surprised when they come here. When they hear the name Shadow Broker, they usually imagine some secret underground hideout. But as D-Bay can see, no one would ever suspect that a place like this is actually a black market front. Then the waiter asks what business D-Bay has with them. D-Bay immediately says he came to acquire the exam papers for the Academy's first-year basics class. The waiter nods and says that they just happen to know someone who has expressed interest in selling them. He asks which department D-Bay is aiming for. D-Bay answers that it is for the magic department. The waiter explains that they have already arranged to meet the seller next weekend. Then he asks if D-Bay would like to come along to acquire the goods. D-Bay briefly wonders if the waiter is trying to memorize his face. Still, he puts on a confident expression and says that verifying sellers and reviewing the quality of goods is basic merchant practice, so it would be best if they go together. In truth, he simply knows he has nowhere left to retreat. The waiter smiles and says that is an excellent choice. He gives D-Bay the location and time, reminding him to memorize it clearly and not write it down anywhere. Watching all of this from the shadows, Asta immediately thinks the situation reeks of a trap. A seller for exam papers just happens to appear the moment a buyer shows up, and they did not even discuss the price. So Asta decides he will verify everything himself. Thanks to the robe he got from House Declan, doing that will be much easier. He even wonders if he should rob whoever happens to have the most money while he is at it. After D-Bay leaves the tea house, the waiter quietly thinks to himself that he will need to leave Hazen once this job is finished. Selling stolen Academy exam papers is bound to become dangerous. Just then, a cold voice suddenly speaks behind him. It asks if the waiter has stopped accepting customers. The waiter is startled. He never sensed anyone approaching. But the moment he sees the robe the man is wearing, he immediately understands. The visitor is a red jade from House Declan, one of the elite mage units of the Declan family. Asta calmly tells the waiter to stop the clumsy acting and skip the useless code words. He says he came here looking for a spatial bag. The waiter wonders if he is referring to Callahan's spatial bag, the one that disappeared after Callahan died. He quickly says they have never seen such an item. Asta then asks what the waiter was discussing earlier with that kid. He mentions that D-Bay looked rather suspicious. The waiter hesitates, unsure how he is supposed to handle this. Suddenly, Asta slams his hand on the table. He tells the waiter to quiet down, saying the sound of gears turning in his head is far too loud. Terrified, the waiter realizes that Asta is not a normal Declan mage. He quickly says he will tell him everything he wants to know. He explains that the matter has nothing to do with House Declan at all. Asta calmly replies that he will listen and judge for himself. Just as the waiter is about to explain, Asta interrupts. He says they can talk while heading to the warehouse. Confused, the waiter asks why they need to go to the warehouse. Asta casually responds that he should inspect the warehouse personally. Then he slowly asks if the waiter is hiding something there, noticing the hesitation in his reaction. While walking down the street, the waiter keeps asking if this is really necessary. Asta calmly replies that nothing will happen if they are truly innocent, and as long as the waiter's confession has nothing to do with House Declan, it will remain a secret forever. The waiter sighs and finally explains. The job was commissioned by Evelyn, the daughter of the Goldrin merchant group. He himself is nothing more than a middleman hired to carry out the deal. He suspects Evelyn's real plan is to create a black market for grades within the Academy. Asta recalls that rumors about Evelyn are already widespread throughout the Academy. Her conduct is exemplary, her social relationships perfectly harmonious. She appears to be a model student, all while secretly pulling strings like this behind the scenes. The thought leaves Asta sick with jealousy. He is stuck doing tutoring work he never asked for while others are making easy money. Soon, they arrive at the warehouse. As the door opens, Asta looks around and comments that there are quite a lot of goods inside. Nothing immediately looks out of place, but he says he still needs to verify everything just in case. Then Asta asks the waiter to prepare 2 subspace pockets because he plans to confiscate a few suspicious items. The waiter silently curses Asta in his head. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Damien tells Chenbi that there are many parts of the formula he could remove, and the spell would still work perfectly fine. He says this while casually casting the spell. Chenbi immediately facepalms and asks how Damien plans to maintain the magic if he removes the stabilization formula. As the two argue, Furion watches them and thinks this place is absolute hell. Damien is clearly a genius, but he completely lacks common sense. What Damien is doing should be computationally impossible, and yet he manifests the magic with ease. Furion decides to endure it for now since Asta is currently teaching Dahlia. Still, he cannot help wondering if Dahlia is going to end up corrupted as well. Just then, Dahlia arrives beside them. Her entire face is wrapped in bandages. The sight instantly fills Furion with rage, and just like that, a week passes. Chenbi, with heavy bags under his eyes, asks if the section Furion graded is also completely correct. Furion nods, looking just as exhausted. Damien has completely aced their test. Damien celebrates loudly, saying that now he finally has blood, sweat, and tears. Even though the test only contained basic questions, it is still a massive improvement. Furion feels satisfied that he has fulfilled his duty. Now he can only hope that Asta has done the same. Meanwhile, Asta sits on top of a rooftop, quietly spying on Dibei. Dibei walks through the streets suspiciously while carrying several documents. Asta originally wanted to intervene when Dibei met the seller, but he chose not to. Even though he would love to beat up both Evelyn and Dibei, that is not part of the plan. There will definitely be people willing to buy those exam papers. Asta pulls out a white orb and mutters that it is showtime. Dibei hands the documents over, saying that everything requested is inside. A hooded man carefully examines them. He notes that the paper quality, the official seal, and the mana pattern embedded within all prove that the documents truly come from the academy. Evelyn smiles and says that Dibei seems to have brought the real thing. She promises that she will continue giving Dibei opportunities, just as she said she would. She also offers her support to the Fingrove merchant group. She even says she will make sure everyone knows that this success is all thanks to Dibei. Dibei becomes excited, thinking that his family will no longer be able to ignore him. Evelyn calmly tells him they will contact him once everything has been reviewed. After Dibei leaves, the smile on Evelyn's face twists into something cold. She calls him a complete moron. Then she asks if the operation is proceeding smoothly. The hooded figure replies that within a few days, every incident Evelyn has been involved in will have the name Dibei and the Fingrove merchant group substituted in her place. Evelyn tells them not to make any mistakes. With a pleasant smile, she suggests they should celebrate their future success with a meal before leaving. Watching everything from the shadows, Asta mutters that he knew she was a bad apple, but she is rotten to the core. He quietly enters the room, planning to ruin Evelyn's scheme and set her straight. He has already recorded their entire conversation using the crystal ball. However, using it immediately would feel like a waste. Then a bright idea suddenly strikes him. Asta pulls out a sheet of paper and begins writing something. As he writes, he realizes his skills have not grown rusty after all. In the past, he forged handwriting all the time. He never expected that skill to become useful again after so long. After stamping the letter, he looks at it proudly. Meanwhile, back in Dahlia's dorm room, Dahlia quietly repeats Asta's words to herself. Strike first to win. In other words, the magic with the fastest activation speed wins the fight. Even a genius dies if their head gets smashed in first. It seems Dahlia has been completely corrupted by Asta's ideology. A few days later, after the exams end, the professors ask the students in the back rows to collect the papers and bring them to the front. After that, while the students are discussing the answers, one student confidently starts listing all the correct ones. His friends immediately ask if he secretly studied for the exam behind their backs after spending the entire week fooling around. The green-haired student shrugs and says that simple tests like this are easy to pass just by attending class. He tells them they should pay more attention during lectures. The others begin wondering if he was actually a genius all along, or if he had secretly been attending tutoring sessions. From the back of the room, Evelyn watches with a satisfied smile, thinking the transaction was a complete success. Demonin von Haramir, the eldest son of Viscount Haramir, was one of her customers. His family controls the kingdom's primary grain reserves, and securing priority bidding rights for those grain fields in exchange for the exam leak had been a masterstroke. She currently has 4 of these deals running at the same time, and the others are expected to pay out just as generously. Just as she is celebrating internally, a teaching assistant suddenly barges into the room and starts looking around. Evelyn's heart sinks as she notices D-Bay entering behind him, along with two of her other clients. The assistant then calls out Demonen's name as well, telling him to follow them because the headmaster is waiting. Evelyn begins wondering what exactly is happening. The next morning, all first-year students are ordered to assemble in the grand hall for an emergency briefing. Students whisper among themselves, wondering what this is about. Apparently there are rumors of a massive cheating scandal. Evelyn tries to figure out who could have leaked it. She was extremely careful not to leave behind a single trace. Maybe it was D-Bay, but she doubts he would be reckless enough to do something like that. A teaching assistant steps forward and asks the students to quiet down. After hearing the rumors circulating, he decides to clarify the situation for those still in the dark. Several students have been caught engaging in academic dishonesty. The hall instantly erupts with gossip again. The assistant continues, explaining that the primary instigator has been identified as D-Bay along with 4 accomplices. All 5 of them will be expelled, and the academy will also pursue full financial restitution. He then adds that this scheme was not uncovered by the faculty, but by a student with an unshakable sense of justice. He points directly at Evelyn and asks her to step forward. The students burst into cheers. Evelyn quickly protests, saying it was not her. The crowd laughs and tells her not to be so humble. They say she earned the right to be proud of exposing the cheating ring. Evelyn laughs nervously, completely confused about what is happening. Inside her head, everything feels like it is collapsing. Meanwhile, from the back of the hall, Asura claps slowly with a grin. He had just destroyed the trust between Evelyn and her merchant clients. 1 week passes. The exam rankings are finally posted. Damien and Chenbi rush out of their dorms and sprint toward the results board. Damien's result appears first, ranked 18th. Both of their hopes instantly shatter. Asura calmly tells them to relax. He explains that the results of the cheating students have not yet been removed from the list. Just then, one of the teaching assistants arrives with a new printed sheet and replaces the board. Hope returns to Chenbi and Damien's eyes. This time, Damien's true rank is revealed, 16th place. They immediately celebrate. Meanwhile, Asura is already thinking about his reward. After everything he went through to teach that multiplication formula, he definitely deserves it. Chenbi calls out to him and says that Asura might actually have a real talent for teaching. After graduation, Chenbi says he wants to stay at the academy for advanced classes and apply for a teaching assistant position. Asura immediately tells him to shut up. He reminds Chenbi that a teaching assistant was literally involved in the cheating ring. Those assistants are so broke that one of them sold the exam key just to survive. Besides, it takes 3 to 4 years just to become a teaching assistant. Asura asks if Chenbi truly wants to devote his life to teaching. Chenbi says it actually seems fulfilling in its own way. He asks Asura if he thinks he has what it takes. Asura says there is another way to teach people. He explains that if Chenbi becomes an archmage, he could teach anyone as ruthlessly as he wants. It is obviously a massive dream, but Asura thinks it would be a complete waste for Chenbi to become just another teaching assistant. Deep down, Asura also hopes Chenbi becomes an archmage. That way he can collect interest on the life Chenbi once saved. Later that evening, a troubleshooter arrives at a bar where a hooded figure is already waiting. The troubleshooter greets him as Kellogg and asks if he still enjoys hanging around in damp holes like this. Kellogg smirks and replies that it is rich coming from someone who spends his entire life digging through dirt. The troubleshooter says he needs Kellogg's help. Kellogg casually asks if he wants him to sneak into the academy or something. The troubleshooter shakes his head and says that ancient ruins have just been unearthed in the Hamelin Great Forest. Kellogg's grin widens instantly. He mutters that this is going to be a massive pain in the neck. A few days later, Asura and the others meet Lance to collect their rewards. Asura immediately asks for a multiplication array. Lance replies that it is no problem at all and promises to give him one of their most prestigious arrays. Asura did not expect her to be this generous, but he certainly is not complaining. Lance then turns to Chenbi and says she took the liberty of looking into his background. She is aware of his family's current financial difficulties. Chenbi replies that things have actually been improving recently. Lance explains that the Blando family could resolve those problems entirely. They are even willing to provide a far better living environment for his family if he wishes. Chenbi is stunned by the offer. He thanks her sincerely, but politely declines. Lance asks him not to see it as charity or repayment. Chenbi says he would rather remain Damien's friend without any conditions attached. Lance looks genuinely surprised. Meanwhile, Asura quietly thinks the entire situation is making him look like a scumbag. Chenbi then asks if he could request something else instead. Lance nods and tells him to go ahead. Chenbi asks if he could study magic under the Blando household so he can broaden his horizons. Lance asks if that is truly enough. Chenbi smiles and says it is more than enough. When Madame Gamo hears about Chenbi's decision, she is visibly surprised and asks if the story is true. She says her son seems to have found himself a true companion. As a gesture of gratitude, she officially declares House Blando as Chenbi's primary sponsor. When Chenbi sees the notice, his hands start trembling, then he begins crying. With the midterm exams finally over, most students feel satisfied with the outcome. Weeks pass. Then Jera announces that the academy will begin the combat readiness protocol. She explains that all basic classes for first-year students will be suspended. From now on, the entire curriculum will focus exclusively on practical anti-personnel combat training. However, attendance will be strictly voluntary. Arzin asks what she means by voluntary. Jera calmly says it means exactly what it sounds like. Students can attend the drills or choose their own path. They may even return to their family estates to undergo private training. For those who remain, the faculty will reinforce the academy with a large number of active-duty Imperial Grade 5 mages. Estat immediately feels that something is wrong. The academy would never overhaul its combat schedule on a whim. The professors are clearly hiding something. A change this large must have come from the very top. That evening, one of the headmaster's aides approaches Estat with a message mentioning 8 o'clock. Estat heads to their usual meeting place. But when he arrives, it looks completely different from before. There is even a concealment barrier covering the abandoned warehouse. Since the location is now safe, Estat decides it is the perfect place to test the multiplication array. Using a single drop of blood as a test subject, he multiplies it again and again, creating a cluster of floating blood orbs. Even so, the output still feels too low for his liking. Just then, the headmaster's voice appears behind him, asking what Estat is cooking up this time. Estat glances back and says the headmaster arrived earlier than expected. The headmaster replies that he can feel Estat's mana vibrating inside the floating blood orbs. He asks if Estat can cast spells through them. Estat confirms it and says the blood orbs are extremely versatile. The headmaster becomes excited and starts firing questions. Can Estat store raw mana inside them and use them as remote casting points? What is the maximum range? What is the effective distance? And most importantly, how did he even discover this method? Estat suddenly smiles. He says he will give a full explanation later, but first he wants to ask for a small favor. Standing in the middle of the floating blood orbs, the headmaster sighs and says Estat has some nerve asking him to be a practice dummy. Inside his head, Estat thinks this is perfect. He just acquired the ultimate high-tier sandbag. Estat tells the old man not to forget to brace himself. The headmaster laughs and says Estat could struggle for a century and still never touch a single hair on his head. Then he tells Estat to get on with it. Estat focuses, compressing the mana inside the blood orbs to their absolute limit. The headmaster's expression shifts in surprise as he calls Estat a crazy brat. Estat calmly mutters one word: explosion. All the blood orbs detonate simultaneously. Looking at the rising dust cloud, Estat mutters that the yield feels a little underwhelming. The headmaster calmly steps out of the smoke and demands that Estat explain where he truly came from. With a serious expression, he says he always knew Estat's mana control was unusually refined for someone his age, but this goes far beyond talent. It simply does not make sense. Estat thinks for a moment, then casually replies that he is just an average everyday student. The headmaster snorts and says Estat's definition of average is completely broken. He admits the logic behind the spell feels entirely alien to him. Then he suddenly asks where the blood orbs disappeared to. Estat replies that they are right here in his hand. Then he flicks the headmaster. Later, sitting inside with a bump on his head, Estat asks what urgent matter the headmaster wanted to discuss. The headmaster finally reveals that it is related to the forest incident. He hands Estat a strange orb and asks him to take a look at it. Estat glances at the object. The moment he sees what is inside, he freezes in shock. The Hamon Great Forest is a jungle preserved since ancient times, a place teeming with all kinds of monsters. Yet humans, being adaptive creatures, continue to live there as well. Especially mercenaries skilled enough to operate in the Great Forest. They are considered the elite of the elite. However, seeing these mercenaries trembling in fear like this is something new, but it is only natural when they are facing the undead, and not just any ordinary undead. The headmaster explains that ordinary undead move by the lingering life in the flesh. Estat continues, saying that these undead seem to be moving by the soul, naturally occurring undead. Estat asks if that means there are ancient ruins in the Great Forest. The headmaster utters a single word: death rose. A monstrosity that refers to the most impure of all impure beings. As the death rose sealed in the ancient ruins becomes unsealed, wraiths begin crawling out. He says the situation is urgent, but his disciples have nothing that can be mobilized for this. At the latest, they must depart within 2 days. The headmaster asks what Estat will do, assuring him that he will not take back Estat's reward even if he refuses. And even if Estat goes, the headmaster has nothing else he can offer him. He says it is entirely up to Estat to decide. This is not a matter that can be tempted by material rewards, since Estat's life would be on the line. Estat says he is ready to go without hesitation. Asta then asks if the headmaster is not worried about his friend, saying it seems like the headmaster would not budge even if it killed him. Asta says it may look like that, but he is not trash who would bargain with someone else's life. The headmaster is touched by Asta's response. Although he said all that, the real reason Asta wants to go is because he has no choice. The magic circles in his chest seem to react to it, and it feels like the ancient forest holds what he is searching for. Later, the headmaster gives him a warp ticket. Asta can use it to pass the gate without delay. Along with it, he gives him a robe artifact imbued with protective magic. Asta asks what that old man will have left if he keeps giving him so many things. The headmaster tells Asta to stop spouting useless nonsense. He says that if you only prepare when something goes wrong, then it is already too late. Finally, the headmaster gives him one more item, a mask. He says it is a token of the new moon. Yuri asks what it is for. The headmaster explains that Asta obviously needs to hide his identity, either with perception-blocking magic or a mask. But if he tries that in front of the headmaster's friend, he would be killed without even realizing it. The headmaster then says he will take care of Asta's academic matters, but he asks what Asta plans to do about the Blandor family. Asta says he will handle it himself. He will simply leave a letter saying that he is going away to train and asking them not to look for him. After reading the letter, Damien says that he wants to train as well and demands to go outside. At Green Town, a city adjacent to the Hameln Great Forest, mercenaries carrying supplies complain about the monsters and about the Imperial Knights who do nothing. They say the knights only collect huge amounts of tax while watching the mercenaries do the work from across the river. Meanwhile, inside a bar, sitting alone in a corner, a young mage wonders what he is supposed to do now. His master had said that an old friend of his would help him since they owed each other a debt. Although that friend would not come personally, he would send people instead. While he is thinking about it, a scary-looking man arrives in front of him and asks if the mage has given his advice any thought. The mage begs the man to spare his life. He says that going into the Hameln forest is no different from being told to die. The kid calls him Mr. Rayleigh and reminds him that the contract was simply to travel back and forth between the 4th base camp and Green Town. He asks if he had not already paid 4 times the usual rate as a hazard bonus, along with a down payment. He asks if Rayleigh is asking to void the contract now. Rayleigh says he understands that the mage must also be in a difficult position. But how is he supposed to find a pathfinder now? While apologizing, Rayleigh says that his own life is more precious to him. Besides, rumors say a monster wave could arrive at any moment. Rayleigh looks at the troubled expression on the mage's face and smirks, thinking he is almost there. In his mind, he wonders if this mage is crazy for traveling back and forth from the 4th base camp. Since he has to leave anyway, he figures it would be better to travel with a skilled mage. He could make a nice profit along the way. And once he gets away from this mage, who clearly looks like a pushover, he could disappear to some countryside and live comfortably like a landlord. Just then, he notices someone walking toward them. The mage asks who Asta is. Asta ignores the question and asks the mage what his name is. The mage says his name is Oberon. Asta asks if Oberon's master is named Liheim. Oberon says yes. Asta says it is good that he found the right person immediately. The guide asks if Asta is the one who was supposed to arrive. The guide then offers to give them a map of the Great Forest. He says he is doing this because he does not have the courage to risk his life, but he is still handing over a map that is as valuable as his own life. Oberon says he understands, and that they will go on their own. The guide turns around and prepares to leave. But suddenly, Asta tells the man not to move another step. Asta warns the guide to stop messing around and tells him to sit down. He says the man has 1 second before he dies by Asta's hand. The guide asks what this means. Asta says time is up. He dashes toward the guide and starts hitting him. The man falls to the floor immediately, but Asta keeps punching him. He asks if the guide did not understand what he said while relentlessly beating him. Meanwhile, Oberon watches in shock, wondering if they can truly defeat the death rows like this. Well guys, that's the end of the video. If you like this video, comment next part in the comment section. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video.